Right now, your mind is operating at only a fraction of its true potential, holding you back from the success you deserve. Today, you'll finally master how to reprogram your brain into an unstoppable success machine that changes everything. Neuroplastic Success. Audiobook by Rowan March. Published by Inner Impact Books. Introduction. Your brain is the most sophisticated supercomputer ever created, capable of processing 11 million bits of information per second. Yet right now, you're operating at a fraction of your potential, running outdated programming that's holding you back from the success you deserve. Every thought you think, every habit you maintain, every belief you hold, these aren't just abstract concepts. They're physical neural pathways carved into your brain through repetition and experience. But here's what most people don't realize. These pathways aren't permanent. Your brain is constantly rewiring itself, forming new connections and pruning old ones. The question isn't whether your brain is being programmed. It's who's doing the programming. You've tried the traditional approaches to success, the goal-setting workshops, the motivation seminars, the productivity apps. And while they might work temporarily, you've watched as old patterns eventually creep back in. That's because these methods never address the root cause, your brain's fundamental operating system. This audiobook isn't another collection of feel-good mantras or recycled success principles. It's a neural revolution, a precise methodology for rewiring your brain's core programming. Through cutting-edge neuroscience and battle-tested strategies, you'll learn how to hack your brain's natural reward systems, transform stress into a performance catalyst, and literally reshape your neural architecture for peak achievement. By the time you complete this journey, you'll have developed laser-like focus that cuts through distractions, unshakable resilience that turns setbacks into stepping stones, and a success mindset that operates on autopilot. Your brain is waiting to be unleashed. The neural revolution begins now. Chapter 1. Breaking the Pattern. You're sitting at your desk, staring at yet another setback. The familiar weight of frustration settles in your chest as you wonder why success feels like trying to climb a mountain made of sand. For every step forward, you seem to slide 3 steps back. You've read the books, attended the seminars, set the goals, created the vision boards. You're doing everything right, yet something invisible keeps pulling you back to square one. This moment of frustration isn't just familiar. It's a neural pattern playing out in your brain with clockwork precision. But here's what most people never realize. This pattern isn't your fault. It's not a character flaw or a lack of motivation. It's simply outdated programming running on the world's most sophisticated supercomputer, your brain. Think of your brain like a vast network of neural highways. Every time you think a thought, react to a situation, or make a decision, you're traveling down one of these highways. The more you travel a particular route, the wider and more established it becomes. This is why breaking old patterns feels so challenging. You're literally trying to redirect traffic from a 12-lane superhighway onto a narrow dirt path. But here's where the magic happens. Your brain possesses an extraordinary ability called neuroplasticity, the capacity to create new neural pathways and prune away old ones. This isn't just scientific theory. It's the fundamental mechanism behind every great transformation story in history. Let's look at Walt Disney's journey. In 1923, Disney lost nearly everything when his first animation company went bankrupt, and most of his team abandoned him for a competitor. This devastating setback could have reinforced neural patterns of failure and defeat. Instead, Disney used this moment to completely rewire his approach to animation and storytelling. Rather than falling back on conventional animation techniques, Disney began experimenting with synchronized sound in cartoons, something previously thought impossible. His brain had to form entirely new neural pathways to envision and execute these innovations. When others said cartoon shorts couldn't sustain audience attention, he rewired again, pioneering the feature-length animated film with Snow White. Each time the industry said impossible, Disney's brain carved new neural highways toward success. The result? Disney didn't just bounce back, he revolutionized an entire industry. By letting go of established patterns and embracing new neural pathways, he transformed animation from simple entertainment into an art form that continues to captivate audiences nearly a century later. Your brain is capable of the same remarkable transformation. But first, you need to understand your current neural success blueprint, the unconscious patterns directing your actions and reactions in pursuit of achievement. These patterns often form early in life, shaped by family dynamics, early experiences, and observed behaviors. They become your default operating system, running silently in the background of every decision and action. Some serve you well, while others act as invisible barriers to your potential. To begin reprogramming these patterns, you need to first make them visible. Start by examining your automatic responses to challenges and opportunities. What's your immediate reaction when faced with a setback? How do you approach new opportunities? These responses aren't random. They're well-worn neural pathways that your brain has deemed safe through repetition. Sam, a talented web designer, discovered this truth the hard way. Despite his exceptional skills, his freelance business remained frustratingly stagnant. Every time a big opportunity arose, he found himself overwhelmed, taking on too many small projects instead of focusing on high-value clients. Through careful self-observation, Sam realized he was operating on an inherited neural pattern. His father, a factory worker, had always preached, "Hard work means busy work." This pattern had created a neural highway that equated success with constant activity rather than strategic growth. Armed with this awareness, Sam began deliberately creating new neural pathways. He started by challenging each impulse to take on small projects, instead forcing himself to spend that energy on high-value client outreach. Initially, this felt uncomfortable. His brain was literally fighting against leaving the familiar neural highway. But with each repetition, the new pathway grew stronger. Within 6 months, Sam had rewired his approach to business growth. His revenue tripled, while his working hours decreased. More importantly, his stress levels plummeted as his brain adapted to the new, more efficient neural patterns. Chapter 2. Resetting your neural defaults. Your brain is lying to you about your capabilities, and you've been believing these lies your entire life. Right now, as you listen to these words, sophisticated neural circuitry is working overtime to maintain a carefully constructed illusion about what you can and cannot achieve. This isn't a metaphor or motivational hyperbole. It's a neurological fact that's been silently shaping your reality since childhood. These lies aren't malicious. They're protective mechanisms, default settings installed by your brain to keep you safe and comfortable. But in today's world, these same defaults that once ensured survival are now the invisible ceiling holding you back from extraordinary achievement. Think of your brain's default settings like the factory presets on a smartphone. They're functional, but they're generic. Designed for basic operation, not peak performance. Just as you wouldn't run a high-end gaming app on factory settings, you can't achieve exceptional success running on neural defaults installed decades ago. The real breakthrough comes when you understand that these defaults aren't fixed. They're simply the most traveled neural pathways in your brain. Every time you accept a limitation, avoid a challenge, or talk yourself out of an opportunity, you're reinforcing these pathways. But here's the extraordinary truth. With intentional effort, you can reset these defaults and install new ones that align with your highest aspirations. This isn't theoretical. It's the exact process that transformed Sarah Blakely from a door-to-door fax machine saleswoman into the creator of Spanx and the youngest self-made female billionaire. Blakely's journey offers a masterclass in neural reprogramming. Growing up, Blakely's brain had established strong default settings around failure. Instead of seeing failure as something to avoid, her father would ask her and her brother at dinner, "What did you fail at this week?" If they didn't have an answer, he'd be disappointed. This unusual approach literally rewired her brain's response to setbacks. When Blakely first conceived the idea for Spanx, she encountered rejection after rejection. Traditional neural defaults would have interpreted this as evidence to stop trying. But her reprogrammed brain processed these setbacks differently. Each no simply meant she was pushing boundaries and taking worthwhile risks. Even more telling was her response to the manufacturing challenges. When every factory initially refused to produce her prototype, her neural defaults didn't default to "this is impossible." Instead, her brain's pathways were wired to seek unconventional solutions. She eventually found success by personally visiting manufacturing plants, explaining her vision directly to workers who could see the product's potential. The most powerful aspect of Blakely's story isn't the billion-dollar outcome. It's how she systematically overwrote her brain's natural tendency towards safety and convention. She didn't just push through limiting beliefs. She fundamentally altered her neural architecture to make innovation and persistence her new normal. Your brain has similar default settings waiting to be reset. These settings fall into three primary categories: capability defaults, what you believe you can and cannot do; strategy defaults, how you approach challenges and opportunities; and identity defaults, who you believe you are at your core. To begin resetting these defaults, you must first bring them into conscious awareness. Your brain has become so efficient at running these programs that they feel like absolute truths rather than learned patterns. Start by examining your automatic responses to opportunities and challenges. When a new opportunity arises, what's your immediate internal dialogue? When you face a setback, what explanation does your brain automatically generate? These aren't random thoughts. They're your current neural defaults in action. Maria, an experienced office manager, discovered this truth when she finally confronted her "playing it safe" default setting. For years, she had dreamed of starting her own business consulting firm, helping small businesses implement the systems and processes she had mastered. Yet every time she got close to taking action, her brain would activate its safety protocols, generating compelling reasons to stay in her comfortable corporate role. Through careful self-observation, Maria realized this wasn't actually her natural tendency. It was a learned response from watching her parents struggle financially after a failed business venture in her childhood. This single experience had installed a powerful neural default, equating entrepreneurship with risk and potential ruin. Armed with this awareness, Maria began the deliberate process of resetting this default. She started small, challenging her brain's automatic safety responses in low-stakes situations. When her default setting urged her to stay quiet in meetings, she spoke up. When it pushed her to stick with proven methods, she experimented with new approaches. Each small victory began rewriting her neural code. She created a new default setting that recognized calculated risks as opportunities for growth rather than threats to stability. Within 6 months, she had launched her consulting business on the side, and within a year, her client base had grown enough to support her transition to full-time entrepreneurship. The key to Maria's transformation wasn't willpower or motivation. It was systematic neural reprogramming. She didn't fight her old defaults. She simply created new, stronger pathways until her brain naturally began choosing the new routes. You can begin this same transformation today. Your challenge is to identify your most limiting default setting, the automatic response that most frequently holds you back from taking bold action. Then, within the next 24 hours, you must take one specific action that directly contradicts this default. If your default setting is, "I need more preparation," your action might be to launch a project at 80% ready, rather than waiting for perfection. If your default is, "I'm not qualified enough," your action might be to apply for a position slightly above your current level. The specific action matters less than the act of consciously choosing a new neural pathway. This isn't about positive thinking or forcing yourself to feel different. It's about creating new neural evidence that contradicts your current defaults. Each time you take action that challenges a limiting default, you're literally rewiring your brain's circuitry, creating new pathways that will eventually become your new normal. Your challenge: in the next 60 seconds, identify your most limiting default setting. Write it down. Then, commit to one specific action you'll take in the next 24 hours that directly challenges this default. Don't plan, strategize, or wait for the perfect moment. Your brain's old defaults will try to talk you out of this. That's exactly why immediate action is crucial. The moment you close this chapter, take your first step toward resetting your neural defaults. Chapter 3: Breaking Through Artificial Limits. What if everything you know about your mental capabilities is based on artificial limits? Right now, invisible boundaries are shaping every decision you make, every goal you set, and every dream you dare to pursue. But here's the extraordinary truth. These boundaries exist only in your neural programming, not in your actual potential. Think about that for a moment. The limitations you accept as reality are nothing more than sophisticated neural constructs, mental software installed through experience, education, and environment. These artificial limits aren't protecting you. They're imprisoning you in a fraction of your true capability. The most successful people in history share one striking characteristic. They operate as if conventional mental limits don't exist. This isn't delusion or blind optimism. It's a fundamentally different way of processing reality at the neural level. While most brains are programmed to identify and respect boundaries, these extraordinary achievers have neural pathways wired for possibility rather than limitation. No one exemplifies this better than Elon Musk, whose approach to innovation and problem-solving repeatedly demonstrates the power of operating beyond artificial mental constraints. When Musk founded SpaceX in 2002, the space industry was considered an impossible arena for private enterprise. The prevailing wisdom, backed by decades of evidence, suggested that space exploration was exclusively the domain of government agencies with billion-dollar budgets. But Musk's brain wasn't programmed to accept these industry-standard limitations. Where others saw insurmountable barriers, his neural pathways were wired to see opportunities for disruption. When told that rockets were too expensive to be commercially viable, he didn't accept this as an immutable fact. Instead, his brain automatically began searching for ways to revolutionize the manufacturing process. The most revealing aspect of Musk's approach wasn't his technical solutions, it was his fundamental rejection of artificial limits. When SpaceX's first 3 launches failed, conventional wisdom suggested accepting defeat. The neural programming of most entrepreneurs would have interpreted these failures as confirmation that the experts were right about private spaceflight being impossible. But Musk's brain processed these setbacks differently. Each failure provided data for improvement rather than evidence of limitations. This wasn't just positive thinking. It was a fundamentally different neural approach to processing challenges. While others saw each failure as proof of limitations, Musk's brain was literally wired to see them as stepping stones to breakthrough. This same pattern appears in his approach to Tesla, The Boring Company, and Neuralink. Each venture entered industries with seemingly insurmountable barriers to entry. Yet in each case, Musk's brain operated as if these limitations were merely current conditions to be changed, rather than fixed boundaries to be respected. The key insight isn't that you need to start launching rockets or revolutionizing transportation. It's understanding that your brain's current programming regarding what's possible is entirely arbitrary and completely reprogrammable. Your neural pathways have been shaped by past experiences, cultural assumptions, and other people's limitations. Every time you've heard, "That's impossible," or "That's not how things work," your brain has been laying down neural pathways that reinforce these artificial boundaries. The good news? These same pathways can be rewired for expanded possibility. The process begins with understanding that your brain's assessment of what's possible is based on pattern recognition, not actual capability. When you encounter a new challenge, your brain rapidly scans its existing neural pathways to determine if something is possible or impossible. This assessment happens so quickly and automatically that it feels like objective reality rather than programmed response. Alex, a mid-level manager at a technology firm, discovered this truth when he began examining his own artificial limits around leadership. For years, he had accepted the belief that he wasn't leadership material, a limitation he had internalized after being passed over for promotion early in his career. This single experience had created neural pathways that automatically interpreted leadership challenges as beyond his capabilities. In meetings, his brain would automatically defer to others. When leadership opportunities arose, his neural programming would generate compelling reasons why he wasn't ready or qualified. The breakthrough came when Alex began consciously challenging these artificial limits. He started small, volunteering to lead minor projects and speaking up more in meetings. Each small success created new neural evidence that contradicted his brain's programmed limitations. The most powerful shift occurred when he volunteered to lead a high-stakes project that his brain's old programming labeled as beyond his capabilities. Instead of avoiding the challenge, he broke it down into smaller components, addressing each aspect as a separate opportunity to expand his perceived limits. As the project progressed, Alex's brain began laying down new neural pathways that associated leadership challenges with opportunity rather than limitation. His team's success provided tangible evidence that his previous limitations were entirely self-imposed. Within 18 months, he had been promoted twice, not because he had gained new skills, but because he had removed artificial limits on his existing capabilities. The most powerful aspect of Alex's transformation wasn't the career advancement. It was the fundamental shift in how his brain processed possibilities. Challenges that once seemed overwhelming became exciting opportunities for growth. Leadership responsibilities that once triggered self-doubt now activated curiosity and engagement. This same transformation is available to you right now. Your brain is constantly laying down new neural pathways. The question is whether these pathways will reinforce artificial limits or expand your sense of possibility. The process begins with identifying one impossible goal you've been avoiding. This isn't about being unrealistic. It's about recognizing that your current assessment of what's realistic is based on programmed limitations rather than actual capabilities. Once you've identified this goal, break it down into neural stepping stones. Small, achievable actions that gradually expand your brain's conception of what's possible. Each small success creates new neural evidence that contradicts your programmed limitations. Your challenge is this. Within the next 24 hours, identify one goal that your brain has labeled as impossible or unrealistic. Write it down. Then, break this goal into 3 specific actions so small that your brain can't automatically dismiss them as impossible. These aren't planning steps. They're neural expansion exercises, designed to push slightly beyond your current comfort zone while remaining achievable enough to create new evidence of capability. Take the first of these actions immediately, before your brain's limitation programming can generate reasons to wait. Remember, you're not trying to achieve the impossible goal overnight. You're systematically expanding your brain's definition of what's possible. The real transformation begins the moment you take action beyond your artificial limits. Each step forward isn't just progress toward a goal. It's literally rewiring your brain's understanding of what you're capable of achieving. Chapter 4. Taking control of your neural autopilot. Right now, thousands of neural pathways in your brain are firing, creating patterns that will shape your future, but 92% of them are running on autopilot. This isn't just another statistic. It means that at this very moment, your brain is making crucial decisions about your potential, your capabilities, and your future without your conscious input. Think about the implications. While you're hearing this, deep neural programming is silently determining which opportunities you'll notice, which challenges you'll tackle, and which dreams you'll dare to pursue. Most importantly, this programming is deciding whether you'll succeed or fail, long before you take any action. The most fascinating aspect of this neural autopilot isn't its power. It's how completely invisible it remains until you know where to look. Like a sophisticated computer program running in the background, these neural patterns shape every aspect of your life while staying just beyond your conscious awareness. Oprah Winfrey's transformation from a troubled childhood in Mississippi to becoming one of the most influential media figures in history provides a masterclass in conscious neural reprogramming. Born into poverty and facing severe early life trauma, Winfrey's initial neural programming was wired for survival rather than success. Her brain had formed powerful patterns around scarcity, unworthiness, and limitation, patterns that could have easily determined her entire life trajectory. What makes Winfrey's story particularly relevant isn't just her success, but the conscious way she approached rewiring her neural patterns. Early in her career, she noticed how her background programming would surface in subtle ways, from her relationships with food and money to her tendency to self-sabotage success. Instead of accepting these patterns as fixed personality traits, she began the deliberate work of examining and upgrading her neural programming. One of the most powerful examples came when she was negotiating ownership rights for her show. Her initial programming, shaped by years of scarcity thinking, triggered intense anxiety about demanding what she was worth. The old neural patterns insisted that she should be grateful for what she had and not risk losing it by asking for more. Instead of letting this autopilot programming determine her actions, Winfrey consciously examined these thoughts. She recognized them not as truth, but as outdated survival programming that no longer served her current reality. Through deliberate practice, she installed new neural patterns around worth, value, and possibility. The results were transformative. Not only did she secure ownership of her show, a move that eventually made her the first African-American woman billionaire, but she created new neural templates for success that influenced every subsequent business decision. Her brain's default programming shifted from "be grateful for what you have" to "create value and claim your worth." This same process of neural pattern recognition and reprogramming appeared throughout her career. When launching Own Network, her initial programming around playing it safe triggered intense resistance. The old patterns insisted that managing one successful show was enough, that expanding further was too risky. Again, rather than letting these automated thoughts determine her actions, she consciously installed new programming around growth and possibility. The power of Winfrey's approach wasn't in forcing herself to think positively. It was in recognizing that her thoughts were simply programs that could be upgraded. Each time she identified a limiting pattern, she treated it as outdated software, ready for an update, rather than an unchangeable truth about reality. This same opportunity for neural reprogramming exists in your brain right now. Every thought, reaction, and decision pattern currently running on autopilot can be brought into conscious awareness and upgraded. The key is learning to recognize these patterns as programming rather than truth. Harris, a sales professional with exceptional product knowledge and strong interpersonal skills, discovered this truth when examining his inconsistent performance. Despite his capabilities, His results would swing dramatically from month to month. Some periods would see him easily exceeding targets, while others would find him struggling to close even simple deals. The breakthrough came when Harris began paying attention to his neural programming around money and success. He discovered that his brain was running two conflicting programs simultaneously. One program, installed through professional training, knew exactly how to create and capture value. The other program, inherited from his family's experiences with financial instability, created unconscious resistance to accumulating too much success. These competing neural patterns explained his roller coaster performance. When deals were small or his monthly numbers were low, both programs could coexist peacefully. But as soon as he approached significant success, the scarcity programming would activate, unconsciously sabotaging his performance through subtle behaviors. Missing follow-up calls, being less assertive in negotiations, or finding reasons to delay closing deals. Harris's transformation began with simply noticing these patterns. Instead of beating himself up about inconsistency, he started observing how these different neural programs influenced his daily actions. He kept a small notebook, tracking when each pattern would activate and what triggered the switches between them. This awareness alone created space for change, but the real breakthrough came through systematic reprogramming. Each morning, Harris would consciously install new neural patterns around success and value creation. Rather than trying to force himself to be more consistent, he focused on upgrading his brain's automated responses to opportunity. When he noticed the scarcity program activating, that familiar hesitation around closing big deals, he would pause and consciously run a new pattern. Instead of letting the old programming determine his actions, he would visualize how each successful deal created value for both his clients and himself. This wasn't just positive thinking. It was literally creating new neural pathways that could eventually become his new autopilot. Within 6 months, Harris's performance not only stabilized, but reached new heights. More importantly, this success felt natural rather than forced. By upgrading his neural programming rather than just pushing harder, he had created a new normal for his brain to maintain automatically. Your brain is running similar automated programs right now. Some serve you well, while others may be silently sabotaging your potential. The key is bringing them into conscious awareness so they can be evaluated and upgraded. Here's your challenge for the next 3 hours. Choose one recurring thought pattern you've noticed today. It might be a habitual self-doubt, a recurring worry, or an automatic assumption about your capabilities. For the next 3 hours, commit to catching this pattern in action. Each time you notice it, pause and ask, is this truth or is this just programming? Then, consciously choose a new thought pattern to install in its place. This isn't about positive thinking. It's about recognizing that your current thought patterns are simply neural programs running on autopilot, and you have the power to upgrade them at any moment. The next 3 hours will show you just how quickly these patterns can shift when brought into conscious awareness. Chapter 5. Building Unstoppable Neural Momentum. Take a moment to imagine yourself 1 year from now, looking back at this exact moment. The moment everything changed. You're sitting somewhere comfortable, perhaps in your favorite chair or a quiet cafe, reflecting on the extraordinary transformation that began right here, right now. In this future memory, you can clearly see how this was the turning point. Not because you made some dramatic leap, but because you finally understood the true power of neural momentum. This isn't just a thought experiment. Your brain is literally creating new neural pathways as you hear these words. Pathways that will either reinforce old patterns or begin building momentum towards something new. The choice of which direction these pathways take and how strong they become rests entirely in your hands at this moment. The science of neural momentum reveals an extraordinary truth. Your brain doesn't distinguish between big actions and small ones when building neural pathways. It simply responds to repetition, strengthening whatever patterns you activate most frequently. This means that tiny, consistent actions can create unstoppable momentum that transforms your entire life, if you understand how to harness this principle correctly. David Goggins' transformation from a 297-pound pest exterminator into an elite ultramarathon runner and Navy SEAL provides a masterclass in building neural momentum. What makes Goggins' story particularly relevant isn't just the dramatic physical transformation. It's how he systematically rebuilt his neural pathways through consistent, often microscopic actions. When Goggins first decided to transform his life, he could barely run a quarter mile. His brain's established neural patterns were programmed for comfort, avoidance, and immediate gratification. But rather than trying to force an overnight transformation, he focused on building neural momentum through small, consistent actions. Every morning, Goggins would put on his running shoes, even on days when he felt too exhausted to run. This wasn't just about building a habit. It was about consistently activating new neural pathways. Some days he would only run for a few minutes, but the crucial element was maintaining the pattern, strengthening these new neural connections day after day. What's particularly instructive about Goggins' approach was his understanding of neural momentum. He realized that each small action wasn't just a physical step toward his goals. It was literally rewiring his brain's default programming. When he felt like quitting, he would force himself to take just one more step, understanding that this single action was strengthening critical neural pathways. Over time, these small actions created unstoppable momentum. The same brain that once generated constant excuses for avoiding exercise began automatically seeking out challenges. Neural patterns that once triggered retreat in the face of discomfort were rewired to embrace difficulty as an opportunity for growth. The power of this approach became evident when Goggins set the world record for pull-ups, completing 4,030 in 17 hours. This wasn't just a physical achievement. It was the culmination of years of neural momentum, built one small action at a time. Each previous workout, each moment of choosing discomfort over comfort, had strengthened the neural pathways that made this feat possible. Most importantly, Goggins' transformation wasn't limited to physical achievements. The neural momentum he built through consistent action transferred to every area of his life. The same strengthened pathways that enabled him to push through physical challenges also enhanced his mental toughness, emotional resilience, and professional performance. This same principle of neural momentum can be applied to any area of your life where you seek transformation. Your brain is constantly building pathways. The only question is whether these pathways are creating momentum toward your goals or away from them. Jasmine, a working mother of two, discovered this truth when trying to launch her own business while maintaining a full-time job. Her initial attempts at transformation followed the familiar pattern. Ambitious plans followed by overwhelm, leading to abandonment of her goals. Her brain's established neural patterns, built around managing daily responsibilities, would automatically divert energy away from her business dreams whenever life got challenging. The breakthrough came when Jasmine understood the power of neural momentum. Instead of trying to make dramatic changes, she focused on tiny, consistent actions that would strengthen new neural pathways. Every morning, before her children woke up, she would spend just 15 minutes working on her business plan. Some days she only wrote a single paragraph or made one business-related phone call. What made this approach different from her previous attempts was her focus on neural pathway formation rather than immediate results. She understood that each small action wasn't just moving her closer to her goal. It was literally rewiring her brain's default programming around entrepreneurship and possibility. Jasmine created a simple tracking system, marking each day she completed her 15-minute business session with a small star on her calendar. As the stars accumulated, she could literally see the neural momentum building. Days when she felt too tired or overwhelmed became opportunities to strengthen these new pathways rather than break them. The compound effect of this approach became evident within months. The same brain that once generated automatic resistance to business activities began seeking out opportunities for growth. Neural patterns that previously triggered overwhelm were gradually rewired to engage with challenges productively. Most importantly, this neural momentum began spilling over into other areas of her life. The strengthened pathways around consistency and focused action enhanced her parenting, improved her day job performance, and even positively impacted her health habits. By focusing on building momentum through small, consistent actions, Jasmine had created a neural foundation for success that extended far beyond her initial business goals. Your brain is waiting to build similar momentum right now. Every small action you take or don't take is either strengthening or weakening critical neural pathways. The key is understanding that transformation doesn't require dramatic changes. It simply requires consistent activation of the right neural patterns. Chapter 6. Activating your brain's hidden success triggers. Your brain contains built-in success triggers that 99% of people never activate. This isn't motivational hyperbole. It's a neurological fact backed by decades of research into peak performance states. Right now, dormant within your neural circuitry, lie powerful mechanisms designed to propel you toward extraordinary achievement. The only difference between you and those who consistently perform at elite levels is their mastery of accessing these triggers at will. Think about the last time you experienced a moment of perfect performance, that rare state where everything seemed to flow effortlessly, where your capabilities exceeded your normal limits, and success felt natural rather than forced. That wasn't luck or coincidence. It was your brain's success triggers firing in perfect synchronization. The question isn't whether you have these triggers. You absolutely do. The question is, why aren't you activating them consistently? The science of neural success triggers reveals something remarkable. Your brain is constantly scanning for cues that signal when to activate peak performance states. These cues can be environmental, physical, or mental, but once established, they become reliable pathways to accessing your highest capabilities. This is why elite performers seem to turn it on at will. They've mastered the art of intentionally activating their success triggers. Michael Jordan's mastery of neural triggers offers a masterclass in this principle. While many attribute Jordan's legendary performances to natural talent, a closer examination reveals his sophisticated understanding of success triggers. Jordan developed an elaborate pre-game routine that wasn't just superstition. It was a carefully crafted sequence of neural activation cues. Before every game, Jordan would follow the exact same pattern. Arriving at the arena at a specific time, wearing his North Carolina practice shorts under his Bulls uniform, bouncing the ball exactly 3 times before free throws. These weren't random habits. They were intentional triggers designed to activate specific neural states associated with peak performance. What makes Jordan's approach particularly instructive was his understanding that success triggers need to be both consistent and progressive. He would regularly add new elements to his routine, creating layers of neural activation that built upon each other. When he returned to basketball after his first retirement, he developed entirely new triggers to accommodate his evolved playing style, demonstrating how success triggers can be consciously redesigned as circumstances change. The power of Jordan's trigger system became most evident in high-pressure situations. While other players would succumb to pressure, Jordan could access his peak performance state almost at will. His famous flu game in the 1997 NBA Finals demonstrates this perfectly. Despite being severely ill, he was able to activate his success triggers and deliver a 38-point performance that became legendary. Jordan's systematic approach to neural triggers extended beyond game day. He created specific triggers for practice sessions, workout routines, and even mental preparation. Each trigger was designed to stack upon the others, creating a comprehensive system for accessing peak states in any situation. This wasn't just about basketball. It was about mastering the art of neural state control. Most importantly, Jordan's trigger system wasn't built overnight. He started with simple cues and gradually expanded them into a sophisticated network of neural activators. This progressive approach to building triggers is something anyone can replicate in their own pursuit of excellence. The science behind success triggers reveals why they're so powerful. When you consistently pair specific actions or thoughts with peak performance states, your brain creates strong neural associations. Over time, simply engaging these triggers becomes sufficient to activate the desired state. It's like installing a neural shortcut to excellence. This understanding of neural triggers can be applied to any area where you seek enhanced performance. Whether you're aiming to improve your focus at work, boost your creative output, or maintain composure under pressure, success triggers can provide reliable access to your optimal states. Consider how Lisa, a software developer, transformed her productivity through conscious trigger design. When she first started working from home, her performance was inconsistent. Some days she'd enter flow states easily, while others were marked by distraction and inefficiency. The breakthrough came when she realized she needed to create reliable triggers for accessing her peak cognitive states. Lisa began by analyzing the environmental and behavioral patterns present during her best performance days. She noticed that her most productive sessions often occurred after her morning walk, when she was wearing her favorite sweater and had her workspace arranged in a specific way. Instead of leaving these elements to chance, she began intentionally combining them into a trigger sequence. Each morning, Lisa would take her walk while listening to the same instrumental playlist. Upon returning, she'd put on her coding sweater and arrange her desk according to a precise layout she'd photographed. She'd then perform a brief breathing exercise while holding her coffee mug in a specific way. These actions might seem arbitrary, but they were carefully chosen to create a chain of neural triggers that signaled peak performance time to her brain. The results were remarkable. By consistently activating these triggers, Lisa found she could reliably access her flow state within minutes of sitting down to work. Her productivity increased dramatically, and more importantly, became consistent rather than sporadic. The same brain that once required perfect conditions for peak performance could now access optimal states on demand through these carefully designed triggers. What made Lisa's approach particularly effective was her understanding that triggers need to be both personal and progressive. Rather than copying someone else's routine, she identified triggers that resonated with her own peak performance patterns. She also regularly refined her trigger sequence, adding new elements as she discovered them and removing ones that lost their effectiveness. The power of this approach became evident when Lisa faced a major challenge, a critical project with an impossible deadline. Instead of becoming overwhelmed, she was able to maintain peak performance throughout the project by relying on her trigger system. The neural pathways she'd strengthened through consistent practice allowed her to access her optimal state, even under extreme pressure. Your brain is already primed with potential triggers for accessing peak states. They're simply waiting to be identified and activated. The key is understanding that these triggers don't need to be complex or time-consuming. They simply need to be consistent and personally meaningful. Here's your challenge for the next 3 days. First, identify one situation where you consistently perform at your best. It could be during exercise, creative work, problem solving, or any other activity where you experience flow states. Now, carefully analyze the elements present during these peak performances. What's in your environment? What actions do you take beforehand? What's your physical and mental state? From this analysis, select 3 elements that you believe contribute most strongly to your peak state. These will become your initial trigger sequence. For the next 3 days, Intentionally combine these elements before engaging in your chosen activity. Be precise in your execution. The goal is to create clear, consistent neural associations. Keep a simple note of how quickly you access your optimal state when using these triggers compared to when you don't. This isn't just about tracking results. It's about training your brain to recognize and respond to your chosen success triggers. Remember, you're not creating new capabilities. You're simply building reliable pathways to abilities you already possess. Chapter 7. Rebuilding Your Focus Factory. Stop listening. Close your eyes. Count your breaths until your mind wanders. You just discovered why success keeps slipping through your fingers. How long did you last? 10 seconds? 20? If you're like most people in today's hyper-connected world, your mind probably drifted before you hit breath number 7. This isn't a judgment. It's a wake-up call. That wandering mind isn't just costing you a few moments of peace. It's systematically undermining every goal you've set for yourself. Your brain's natural focusing mechanisms are being systematically dismantled by the modern world. Every notification, every quick glance at your phone, every tab switch on your browser is rewiring your neural circuitry to resist sustained attention. The result? A mind that's become allergic to the very thing needed for meaningful achievement: concentrated focus. But here's what's fascinating. Your brain's ability to focus isn't actually diminishing. It's being redirected. The same neural hardware that once allowed our ancestors to maintain attention for hours while hunting or crafting is still there. It's simply been hijacked by the dopamine-driven distractions of the digital age. Bill Gates provides a masterclass in reclaiming this natural focusing power. Despite running one of the world's largest companies and later one of its most impactful foundations, Gates maintains a practice that seems almost impossible in today's world: his famous Think Weeks. Twice a year, he completely disconnects from the outside world, retreating to a secluded cabin with nothing but books and his thoughts. During these periods of intense focus, Gates processes information and makes decisions that often impact billions of dollars and millions of lives. But what's particularly instructive about his approach isn't just the isolation. It's how he systematically rebuilt his brain's focusing mechanisms through consistent practice. Early in his career, Gates noticed his ability to maintain deep focus was being eroded by the growing demands of running Microsoft. Rather than accepting this as inevitable, he recognized it as a neural pattern that could be rewired. His Think Weeks weren't just about getting away. They were carefully designed neural training sessions for rebuilding his focus circuits. Gates started small, initially struggling to maintain concentration for extended periods even in isolation. He discovered that focus, like any neural pathway, had to be reconstructed gradually. He began with shorter sessions, progressively extending their duration as his brain adapted. More importantly, he learned to recognize and eliminate what he called attention leaks. Those subtle distractions that drain mental energy even when we think we're focused. The results were transformative. Not only did these periods of intense focus lead to breakthrough insights, but they also permanently upgraded his brain's baseline focusing ability. Gates found that after each Think Week, his capacity for sustained attention in daily work improved significantly. He was literally rebuilding his neural focus factory through deliberate practice. What makes Gates's approach particularly relevant is how it demonstrates the brain's remarkable ability to rebuild focusing power at any age. Even as digital distractions increased and demands on his attention multiplied, he maintained and even enhanced his capacity for deep focus through systematic neural training. Most importantly, Gates's method reveals something crucial about attention. It's not just about eliminating distractions, it's about actively strengthening your brain's focusing mechanisms through progressive challenge and recovery. just like building any other kind of strength. This understanding of focus as a trainable neural pathway, rather than a fixed capacity, changes everything. It means that your current attention span isn't your destiny, it's simply your starting point for reconstruction. Observe how Kai, a promising but scattered entrepreneur, applied these principles to transform both his mind and his business. When Kai first launched his startup, he embodied the typical modern founder, constantly switching between tasks, always accessible, and perpetually distracted. His company reflected this scattered approach, with team members mirroring his fragmented attention patterns. The breaking point came during a crucial investor meeting. While attempting to present his company's vision, Kai found himself unable to maintain a coherent train of thought for more than a few minutes. The investors noticed, and the funding fell through. This painful experience forced him to confront an uncomfortable truth. His inability to focus wasn't just a personal limitation, it was a business liability. Inspired by Gates's approach, but recognizing he couldn't take entire weeks off, Kai designed his own progressive focus training program. He started with just 25 minutes of completely uninterrupted work, using a simple timer and turning off all possible distractions. The first few sessions were surprisingly challenging. His mind would rebel, creating urgent reasons to check his phone or email. But Kai persisted, gradually extending these focused periods while carefully observing how his brain responded to different conditions. He discovered that certain times of day, physical positions, and environmental factors significantly impacted his focusing power. More importantly, he noticed that his ability to maintain attention wasn't fixed. It improved with consistent practice. As his personal focusing power grew, Kai began implementing these principles throughout his company. He introduced deep work blocks, where the entire team would focus on individual tasks without interruption. Meeting times were condensed and made more focused. The constant stream of internal communications was replaced with designated check-in periods. The transformation was remarkable. Not only did productivity soar, but the quality of work improved dramatically. Ideas that previously seemed too complex to tackle became manageable when approached with sustained attention. The company culture shifted from constant reactivity to purposeful focus, and within 6 months, they secured funding from investors who specifically cited the team's unusual ability to maintain clear, focused execution as a key factor in their decision. Your brain is ready for a similar transformation. The neural pathways for sustained focus are still there, waiting to be reactivated and strengthened. But like any form of training, you need to start where you are and progress systematically. Chapter 8: The Emotional Success Circuit. You make approximately 35,000 decisions every day. Yet only one thing determines the quality of each choice, and it's not your logic. While you might pride yourself on being rational, analytical, and strategic, your brain has a different agenda. Every single decision you make, from what to eat for breakfast to which career opportunity to pursue, is fundamentally shaped by your emotions. This isn't a weakness. It's your brain's most sophisticated success mechanism. But like any powerful tool, it must be properly calibrated to work in your favor rather than against you. Think about your last major decision. Perhaps it was a career move, an investment, or an important conversation. You probably spent hours analyzing the pros and cons, gathering data, and trying to think it through logically. Yet in the end, what really drove your choice? That gut feeling, that emotional pull, that either energized you toward action or held you back in hesitation. Your emotional circuitry isn't just influencing your decisions. It's pre-filtering your options before they even reach your conscious awareness. This is why two people facing the same opportunity can see entirely different possibilities. Their emotional programming is literally shaping what their brains allow them to perceive as possible. Michelle Obama's journey from Chicago's South Side to becoming First Lady and global inspiration provides a masterclass in emotional circuit reprogramming. Early in her career, she faced a pivotal moment that would reshape her emotional relationship with success. Despite having secured a prestigious position at a top law firm, the traditional definition of success for a Harvard law graduate, she felt deeply unfulfilled. The conventional wisdom would have been to ignore these emotions and focus on the logical benefits of her position. Instead, she did something remarkable. She used her emotional signals as navigation tools rather than obstacles. She recognized that her feelings of dissatisfaction weren't character flaws, but rather sophisticated feedback from her brain's success circuits, indicating misalignment with her true potential. This realization led her to completely reimagine her career path, eventually leading to roles in public service and community development that would prepare her for unprecedented influence. But what's particularly instructive about her approach wasn't just the career change. It was how she systematically reprogrammed her emotional responses to challenges. When faced with racial prejudice or gender bias, rather than allowing these experiences to trigger limiting emotional patterns, she developed what she calls emotional armor. Not to suppress her feelings, but to transform them into fuel for positive change. She learned to channel the energy of frustration into focused action, to convert anxiety about public speaking into heightened presence, and to use moments of self-doubt as catalysts for deeper authenticity. This emotional mastery became particularly crucial during her husband's presidential campaign and her time as First Lady. The intensity of public scrutiny and criticism could have easily triggered defensive or reactive emotional patterns. Instead, she maintained what she describes as emotional sovereignty, the ability to choose her emotional responses rather than being driven by them. The key insight from Obama's journey isn't that she eliminated negative emotions. It's that she reprogrammed how her brain processed and utilized emotional energy. She transformed what could have been emotional obstacles into emotional rocket fuel for achievement. This same principle of emotional circuit reprogramming explains why some people thrive under pressure while others crumble, why certain individuals can turn setbacks into comebacks while others remain stuck, and why a select few can consistently make high-quality decisions while many become paralyzed by choices. Diana, an emergency room nurse in Seattle, discovered this truth through necessity. Early in her career, the high-stress environment of the ER would trigger an overwhelming emotional cascade. Anxiety would cloud her judgment, urgency would scatter her focus, and the emotional weight of critical cases would follow her home. Her turning point came during a particularly challenging night shift. While treating a critical trauma patient, she noticed something fascinating. Her more experienced colleagues maintained peak performance not by suppressing their emotions, but by channeling them differently. Their concern for patients fueled their focus rather than fragmenting it. Their sense of urgency enhanced their precision rather than compromising it. This observation led Diana to experiment with her own emotional circuits. Instead of fighting against the adrenaline surge that came with emergency cases, she learned to ride it like a wave, using that energy to heighten her awareness and sharpen her decisions. Rather than trying to block out the emotional impact of difficult cases, she developed a practice of conscious emotional processing, taking a few seconds between patients to acknowledge her feelings and redirect that emotional energy into enhanced care for the next person. She started small, focusing on reprogramming one emotional trigger at a time. When the familiar flutter of anxiety would arise during complex procedures, instead of trying to suppress it, she would mentally relabel it as enhanced alertness. When feeling overwhelmed by multiple critical patients, rather than letting that emotion scatter her focus, she would use it as a signal to take one deliberate breath and organize her priorities. The results were transformative. Not only did her performance improve dramatically, but her emotional resilience grew stronger with each challenge. Her new emotional mastery became noticed throughout the department, and within 3 years, she was promoted to department director, the youngest in her hospital's history. Diana's success reveals a crucial truth about emotional circuit reprogramming. It's not about eliminating emotional responses, but rather about upgrading how your brain processes and utilizes emotional energy. Every emotion, even those traditionally labeled as negative, contains potential energy that can be redirected toward success. This understanding revolutionizes how you can approach your own emotional responses to challenges. Each emotional trigger becomes an opportunity for reprogramming, each stress response a chance to install new success-supporting patterns. Your challenge for the next 24 hours is this. Identify one recurring emotional trigger in your life, perhaps a specific situation that reliably produces stress, anxiety, or frustration. Instead of trying to avoid or suppress this emotion, create a new success-supporting response pattern. When the trigger occurs, pause for one breath and consciously relabel the emotion as energy for success. Document how this small shift in emotional processing affects your decisions and actions in that moment. Chapter 9. Rhythm over Routine. Your brain's natural performance code. Everything you know about productivity is destroying your brain's natural performance rhythms. While you've been forcing yourself into rigid schedules, fighting against afternoon slumps, and powering through mental fog with caffeine and willpower, your brain has been desperately trying to tell you something. You're working against your neural design, not with it. Think about your typical workday. You likely start at a fixed time, regardless of whether your brain is ready for peak performance. You schedule your most important tasks based on external demands, rather than your internal energy patterns. You push through natural rest signals, believing that productivity means constant output. This approach isn't just inefficient, it's actively damaging your brain's sophisticated performance systems. Your brain operates on a complex series of ultradian rhythms, natural cycles of peak activity and essential recovery. These aren't just simple patterns of feeling energetic or tired. They're intricate neural sequences that determine when your brain is primed for analytical work, creative insight, physical activity, or restorative rest. When you override these rhythms in the name of productivity, you're not just fighting fatigue, you're disrupting the very mechanisms designed to maximize your performance. Maya Angelou's extraordinary creative output, 93 books, countless poems, essays, and screenplays, wasn't achieved through conventional productivity methods. Her approach reveals profound insights about working with, rather than against, the brain's natural rhythms. Each morning, she would arrive at her writing room at 6:30 a.m., not because she was following someone else's prescription for success, but because she had discovered this timing aligned perfectly with her brain's peak creative window. What's particularly instructive about Angelou's method wasn't just when she wrote, but how she protected and prepared for these optimal periods. She understood that peak performance isn't just about the moment of execution, it's about respecting the entire rhythm of creativity. She would begin winding down her social interactions by early evening, knowing that creative energy requires a proper restoration cycle. She declined most morning engagements, recognizing that her brain's most valuable creative hours couldn't be sacrificed for routine meetings or casual commitments. But here's what most people miss about Angelou's approach. She didn't just block out time. She created entire environmental and behavioral sequences that signaled to her brain it was time for peak performance. She would arrive at her writing room with specific items: yellow legal pads, a Bible, a dictionary, and playing cards. These weren't mere tools. They were neural triggers that prepared her brain for creative work. She would even book a hotel room in her hometown when she needed deep focus, understanding that environment plays a crucial role in activating optimal brain states. Most importantly, Angelou respected her brain's need for recovery. When her creative energy began to wane, usually around 2 p.m., she wouldn't force herself to continue. She recognized this wasn't laziness or lack of discipline. It was her brain signaling the end of a natural productivity cycle. By honoring these signals rather than fighting them, she maintained consistent creative output for decades. This same principle of working with natural brain rhythms rather than against them explains why some people can maintain extraordinary productivity over long periods while others burn out despite working fewer hours. It's not about the quantity of time invested. It's about aligning activity with your brain's natural high-performance windows. Trevor, a regional sales manager in Portland, discovered this truth after years of diminishing returns from traditional productivity methods. His team's performance had plateaued despite longer hours and increasingly rigid scheduling. Sales targets were being missed, team morale was suffering, and his own decision-making ability seemed to deteriorate as each day progressed. The turning point came when he noticed something peculiar about his top performer, Lisa. While other team members slogged through their morning call blocks, Lisa would spend her first hour quietly reviewing data and planning her approach. She wouldn't make her first call until around 10:30 a.m., but when she did, her conversion rate was nearly triple the team average. This observation led Trevor to experiment with brain-aligned scheduling. Instead of enforcing uniform call blocks, he had team members track their energy levels and success rates throughout the day. The patterns were revealing. Some team members, like Lisa, were most effective in late morning, while others peaked in early afternoon or even early evening. Trevor redesigned the entire team schedule around these natural rhythms. Morning meetings were eliminated, allowing each person to use their first hour according to their optimal preparation pattern. Call blocks were personalized to align with individual peak performance windows. Most radically, he introduced mandatory recovery periods, short breaks when energy patterns showed consistent dips. The results were remarkable. Not only did overall sales increase by 47% in the first quarter, but team burnout virtually disappeared. The same people, doing the same work, but aligned with their brain's natural rhythms, produced dramatically better results while feeling more energized. Trevor took the experiment further by applying these principles to his own work patterns. He discovered his strategic thinking was sharpest between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m., so he reserved this time for planning and complex problem solving. His emotional intelligence and communication skills peaked in the afternoon, making this the ideal time for team coaching and difficult conversations. By respecting these patterns instead of fighting them, he found himself making better decisions with less effort. The key insight from Trevor's experience wasn't just about timing. It was about recognizing that productivity isn't a matter of willpower or discipline, but of neural alignment. When you work with your brain's natural rhythms, excellence becomes effortless. When you fight against them, even simple tasks become exhausting. Your challenge for the next 3 days is this: create your personal productivity map. Every 2 hours from when you wake up until you sleep, rate your energy level, mental clarity, and emotional state on a scale of 1 to 10. Note what you're doing during your highest and lowest scores. Don't try to change anything yet. Just observe and document your natural patterns. This simple awareness exercise will reveal your brain's unique performance rhythm, providing the foundation for a completely new approach to productivity that works with your neural design rather than against it. Chapter 10. The 60-Second Revolution: Rewiring Your Decision Matrix. The next 60 seconds will determine the trajectory of your entire life, and you won't even realize you made a decision. Right now, as your eyes scan these words, your brain is processing roughly 11 million bits of information per second. Hidden within this neural storm is a choice that will ripple through every aspect of your future. It might be dismissing a subtle opportunity, reinforcing a limiting belief, or planting the seed of a breakthrough idea. Most people believe their major life decisions happen in obvious moments: accepting a job offer, choosing a life partner, or making a significant investment. But your brain's most powerful decisions occur in the quiet spaces between these milestone moments. Every time you unconsciously choose what to focus on, what to dismiss, and what to pursue, you're programming your neural pathways for either breakthrough or breakdown. Think about the last time you faced a significant decision. You probably analyzed options, weighed pros and cons, and tried to make a rational choice. Yet research shows that by the time you consciously started this process, your brain had already made up to 10,000 unconscious micro-decisions that shaped your perspective, filtered your options, and influenced your final choice. Admiral William McRaven, former Navy SEAL commander and architect of the operation that led to the capture of Osama bin Laden, revolutionized military decision-making by understanding this crucial insight. While most combat training focused on split-second tactical choices, McRaven recognized that the real determinants of success happened long before the crucial moment. During his tenure as commander of U.S. Special Operations Command, McRaven developed what he called Decision Point Zero training. Instead of just preparing troops for combat decisions, he created a comprehensive system that rewired their entire decision-making architecture. The results were extraordinary. Mission success rates increased dramatically, not just because teams made better choices under fire, but because they had transformed their underlying decision patterns. What's particularly fascinating about McRaven's approach wasn't the complexity of his system, but its elegant simplicity. He discovered that elite decision-making isn't about having more options or more information. It's about having clearer neural pathways to process what's already there. His teams would practice making hundreds of small decisions daily, each one reinforcing optimal neural patterns. By the time they faced critical situations, excellence wasn't a choice. It was their brain's default setting. McRaven applied these same principles to his personal life, demonstrating how military-grade decision-making could transform everyday choices. He famously starts each day by making his bed, not for the sake of tidiness, but because this simple action activates decisive neural pathways. It's a small choice that signals to his brain, today is for decisive action, not passive reaction. But here's what most people miss about McRaven's method. It wasn't just about building good habits. It was about rewiring the brain's decision-making circuitry through strategic repetition. Each small decision became a neural training ground for bigger choices ahead. By mastering the mechanics of micro-decisions, he built a brain that could handle macro challenges with remarkable clarity. The science behind this approach reveals something extraordinary about your own decision-making potential. Your brain contains specialized neural networks dedicated to choice and consequence evaluation. These networks can either work in harmony, producing clear, confident decisions, or conflict with each other, creating that familiar feeling of uncertainty and second-guessing. Susan, a restaurant owner in Seattle, discovered the power of this principle during the height of the pandemic. With her business facing potential closure, she found herself paralyzed by the constant stream of critical decisions, whether to pivot to delivery, how to modify the menu, when to reduce staff hours. Each choice felt overwhelming, and her inability to decide quickly was making a bad situation worse. The turning point came when she realized she was approaching each decision as an isolated event, rather than an opportunity to strengthen her decision-making circuitry. Inspired by military decision-making protocols, she created what she called her Decision Dojo, a systematic approach to training her brain's choice mechanisms. Every morning, before opening the restaurant, Susan would deliberately make 10 small but clear decisions about the day ahead. These weren't major strategic choices, but simple things like deciding exactly what time she would review inventory, which supplier she would contact first, or what specific phrase she would use to start the staff meeting. Each decision was made definitively, without second-guessing. As these small choices accumulated, something remarkable happened. Her neural pathways for decision-making became stronger and clearer. When faced with bigger decisions, like whether to invest in outdoor heating for winter dining or how to restructure her loans, she found herself accessing the same decisive clarity she had practiced with smaller choices. The most powerful shift came in her ability to trust her decisions. Instead of constantly questioning her judgment, she recognized that each choice was supported by thousands of previous decisions that had strengthened her neural decision-making architecture. This confidence transformed how her staff and customers perceived her leadership, creating a positive feedback loop that helped the restaurant not just survive, but thrive during unprecedented challenges. Your brain is waiting for the same transformation. Every day presents countless opportunities to strengthen your decision-making circuits, but most people let these moments pass unconsciously, allowing their neural pathways to remain fuzzy and uncertain. The key is to approach each decision, no matter how small, as a chance to rewire your brain for clearer, more confident choices. Chapter 11. Memory Mastery. Unlocking your brain's hidden storage vault. Your brain is currently deleting 99% of everything you experience, including the information you desperately need for success. Right now, as you process these words, crucial insights, opportunities, and solutions are slipping through the neural cracks of your mind, lost forever in the void of forgotten experiences. This isn't just about forgetting where you placed your keys or blanking on someone's name. Your brain's automatic filtering system is actively erasing potential breakthrough moments, discarding vital patterns, and eliminating connections that could transform your life. Every day, you encounter approximately 34 gigabytes of information, enough to fill 4 DVDs, but your conscious mind only retains a fraction of this data. The real tragedy isn't just what you forget. It's what you never knew you knew in the first place. Your brain is constantly picking up subtle signals, processing complex patterns, and making sophisticated connections. But without proper neural programming, these invaluable insights vanish before they ever reach your conscious awareness. Richard Branson's journey with dyslexia provides a fascinating window into the true potential of human memory systems. Throughout his school years, Branson struggled with traditional learning methods, often finding himself at the bottom of his class. But rather than accepting these limitations, he developed an extraordinary set of memory techniques that would later become the foundation of his business empire. Branson discovered that his brain wasn't broken. It was simply processing information differently. He began creating elaborate mental maps, connecting business data to vivid sensory experiences. When launching Virgin Atlantic, he didn't memorize market statistics and competitor analyses in traditional ways. Instead, he developed what he called memory anchors, linking each crucial piece of information to physical locations and emotional experiences. During crucial business negotiations, while others relied on written notes and presentations, Branson could instantly access vast amounts of information through his carefully constructed memory systems. He turned his perceived weakness into a remarkable strength, developing memory techniques that allowed him to run multiple companies simultaneously without getting lost in the details. Most significantly, Branson's approach wasn't about rote memorization. It was about creating neural pathways that made information retention effortless and natural. He understood that the brain doesn't store memories like a computer stores files. Instead, it creates complex networks of associations, each connection strengthening the overall memory structure. The science behind Branson's intuitive approach reveals something extraordinary about your own memory potential. Your brain contains specialized neural networks dedicated to different types of memory formation: procedural memory for skills and habits, semantic memory for facts and concepts, and episodic memory for experiences and events. When properly aligned, these networks can work in harmony, creating what neuroscientists call memory consolidation, the process of transforming short-term information into long-term knowledge. James, a second-year medical student in Boston, discovered the power of this approach during his most challenging semester. Facing an overwhelming amount of complex medical information, he found himself struggling to retain even basic concepts. Traditional study methods, highlighting textbooks, creating flashcards, and endless repetition, weren't working. His grades were slipping, and his dream of becoming a surgeon seemed to be slipping away. The turning point came when James realized he was fighting against his brain's natural memory systems rather than working with them. Inspired by memory champions and neuroscience research, he developed what he called his neural network method for learning complex medical information. Instead of trying to memorize isolated facts, James began creating elaborate story structures that connected multiple concepts. Each body system became a unique city in his mind, with organs as buildings, cellular processes as citizens, and diseases as challenges these citizens faced. When studying cardiac pathology, the heart became a vast metropolis with 4 main districts, the chambers, each with its own characteristic architecture and population. This wasn't just visualization, it was strategic neural programming. James discovered that by linking new information to existing knowledge and emotional experiences, he could create memory pathways that were both stronger and more accessible. His test scores began to improve dramatically, not because he was studying more, but because he had rewired his brain's memory systems for optimal retention. The most powerful shift came in his ability to recall information under pressure. During clinical rotations, while other students froze when questioned by attending physicians, James could instantly access relevant information because it was woven into vivid mental landscapes rather than stored as isolated facts. Your brain is waiting for the same transformation. Every piece of information you encounter has the potential to become a permanent part of your success blueprint, but only if you know how to program your neural pathways for optimal retention. The key is understanding that memory isn't about storage, it's about connection. Think about the last time you tried to memorize something important, perhaps a presentation, a client's information, or a new skill. If you struggled to retain it, it wasn't because your memory was poor. It was because you weren't engaging your brain's natural memory consolidation systems. Your challenge for the next week is to master one new skill using accelerated memory techniques. Choose something specific and measurable. It could be learning a new language phrase, mastering a new professional tool, or understanding a complex concept in your field. Here's your neural programming protocol. First, create a vivid story around the skill, linking each component to something you already know well. Make it emotional, unusual, even slightly ridiculous. Your brain remembers the extraordinary better than the ordinary. Second, practice the skill at specific intervals. Immediately after learning, then at 1 hour, 24 hours, and 72 hours. This timing aligns with your brain's natural memory consolidation windows. Third, teach what you've learned to someone else within the week. The act of explaining reinforces neural pathways and reveals gaps in your understanding. Document your progress at each interval, noting not just what you remember, but how the information feels more integrated and natural over time. This isn't just about learning faster. It's about rewiring your brain's memory systems for lifelong retention and instant recall. Remember, every moment contains information that could change your life. The only question is, will your brain be programmed to keep it? Chapter 12. Beyond Motivation, Activating Your Brain's Natural Drive System. What if motivation isn't what you need for success? What if waiting for motivation is actually sabotaging your potential? Right now, as you hear these words, your brain's natural drive mechanisms are lying dormant, overshadowed by the modern myth that you need to feel motivated to take action. This isn't just about pushing through when you don't feel like doing something. Your brain contains sophisticated neural circuits designed specifically for sustained action, circuits that operate independently of motivation. Yet most people never activate these systems, instead waiting for the perfect emotional state that rarely arrives. Think about the last time you postponed an important task because you weren't feeling it. That moment wasn't just a temporary delay. It was actually programming your neural pathways to depend on emotional states for action, creating a debilitating cycle that gets stronger with each repetition. Serena Williams' journey provides a masterclass in transcending motivation-dependent achievement. Early in her career, she faced a critical realization. Relying on motivation was making her performance inconsistent and leaving her vulnerable to opponents who had mastered their internal drive systems. Working with her father, Richard Williams, Serena developed what she called her automatic excellence protocol, a neural programming approach that enabled peak performance regardless of emotional state. During her training sessions, she deliberately practiced under varying conditions, when exhausted, discouraged, or distracted. This wasn't just about building mental toughness. It was about rewiring her brain's drive mechanisms to operate independently of emotional fuel. The turning point came during the 2007 Australian Open. Despite battling severe food poisoning and feeling physically depleted, Serena dominated the tournament, later revealing that she had accessed a performance state that transcended both physical discomfort and emotional fluctuations. She wasn't pushing through with willpower or motivation. She had activated neural circuits that made excellence automatic. Most significantly, Serena's approach revealed something revolutionary about human performance. The brain's natural drive systems actually become stronger when divorced from emotional dependencies. By training herself to access these circuits directly, she not only enhanced her performance, but also experienced less mental fatigue and faster recovery between matches. This discovery aligns with breakthrough research in neurophysiology, showing that the brain contains specialized neural networks dedicated to sustained action. Networks that operate most efficiently when freed from the interference of motivational states. These circuits, known as autonomous drive systems, are evolutionary adaptations that enabled human survival long before the concept of motivation existed. Elena, a corporate trainer in Seattle, discovered the power of these systems during the most challenging period of her career. After years of teaching traditional motivation-based success strategies, she found herself trapped in a cycle of diminishing returns. Her own performance was inconsistent, and her clients' results plateaued after initial improvements. The breakthrough came when Elena noticed something peculiar about her most successful clients. They weren't the ones who reported feeling highly motivated. They were the ones who had unconsciously developed routines that bypassed the need for motivation entirely. This observation led her to completely redesign her approach to performance enhancement. Instead of teaching techniques for generating motivation, Elena began helping clients identify and activate their natural drive circuits. She developed what she called the neural drive protocol, a systematic approach to programming the brain for automatic excellence. The first phase involved pattern interruption. Elena had clients document their default response when facing important tasks. Did they wait for motivation? Check social media? Make another coffee? By bringing awareness to these patterns, they could begin to short-circuit the motivation-dependent cycle. Next came drive activation. Rather than trying to generate positive feelings about tasks, clients learned to initiate action through direct neural commands, similar to how you don't need motivation to pull your hand away from a hot surface. This wasn't about forcing or pushing. It was about accessing more primitive and reliable action circuits. The results were remarkable. Not only did her clients report more consistent performance, but they also experienced a surprising side effect: reduced mental fatigue. By eliminating the energy-intensive process of generating and maintaining motivation, they had more cognitive resources available for actual task execution. Elena's own transformation was equally dramatic. She stopped preparing extensively for her training sessions, instead trusting her brain's natural drive systems to deliver optimal performance. Her evaluations improved, and her business grew exponentially as word spread about her unique approach to sustainable achievement. The most powerful shift came in how she handled challenging situations. When faced with difficult clients or technical problems during virtual sessions, Elena no longer needed to psych herself up or push through. Her neural programming automatically engaged optimal performance patterns, regardless of how she felt about the situation. Your brain is waiting for the same transformation. Every time you wait for motivation, you're actually strengthening neural pathways that make you dependent on emotional states for action. The key is understanding that drive isn't something you need to generate. It's something you need to unleash. Think about a task you've been postponing until you feel ready or feel motivated. That task isn't just waiting to be completed, it's actively programming your brain for inaction. Each day you wait for motivation is another day you strengthen the neural patterns of dependence. Here's your neural reprogramming challenge. Within the next hour, identify one important task you've been waiting to feel motivated about. It should be something meaningful but manageable. Perhaps a work project you've been avoiding, a difficult conversation you need to have, or a personal goal you've been postponing. Now, without trying to generate any positive feelings about it, without any preparation or psyching up, simply initiate action. Don't think about the entire task. Focus only on the first physical movement required. Your brain's natural drive systems will activate automatically once you're in motion. Document how this feels different from motivation-dependent action. Notice the mental clarity that comes from bypassing the emotional preparation phase. This isn't just about completing one task. It's about rewiring your brain's fundamental approach to achievement. Remember, motivation is a modern luxury your brain doesn't actually need. Your natural drive systems are already perfectly equipped for excellence. They're just waiting for you to stop blocking them with emotional dependencies. Chapter 13. The Power of Productive Stress, Transforming Tension into Triumph. Your hands are shaking. Your heart is racing. Your mind is spinning. Congratulations! You've just activated your brain's most powerful success mechanism. While everyone else scrambles to eliminate these sensations, you're about to discover how to harness them for extraordinary achievement. That flutter in your stomach before a big presentation. It's not anxiety holding you back. It's unutilized power waiting to be channeled. Those racing thoughts before an important decision? They're not mental chaos. They're your brain's natural performance enhancers operating at suboptimal settings. Most people spend their lives fighting these responses, never realizing they're actually suppressing their built-in success accelerators. Every time you try to calm down or relax before a high-stakes situation, you're actually programming your brain to resist its most powerful performance state. Andy Puddicombe's transformation from stressed-out college student to Buddhist monk to global mindfulness leader illuminates the revolutionary potential of reframing stress. During his university years, Puddicombe struggled with debilitating anxiety that manifested in physical symptoms: racing heart, trembling hands, scattered thoughts. Traditional advice to just relax only intensified his struggles. The turning point came when a meditation teacher helped him see these symptoms not as problems to solve, but as energy to harness. Instead of trying to suppress his stress response, Puddicombe learned to channel it. This shift in perspective led him to spend a decade in Buddhist monasteries, where he mastered ancient techniques for transforming tension into focused power. But the real breakthrough came when he returned to secular life and founded Headspace. Puddicombe realized that his stress response hadn't been the enemy. His resistance to it had been the problem. By accepting and redirecting stress energy rather than fighting it, he built a company that has helped millions of people transform their relationship with mental tension. Most significantly, Puddicombe discovered that stress itself wasn't the issue. It was the neural programming around stress that determined whether it became a barrier or a booster. When he taught his corporate clients to reframe their stress response as performance fuel, their productivity and innovation skyrocketed. This aligns with groundbreaking research showing that stress only becomes harmful when we believe it's harmful. Studies have found that people who view stress as performance-enhancing consistently outperform those who view it as debilitating, even when experiencing identical physiological responses. Nina, an engineer with dreams of becoming a public speaker, discovered this truth through her own transformation journey. Despite having valuable insights to share, her fear of public speaking manifested in classic stress symptoms: trembling voice, racing heart, sweaty palms. Traditional advice to imagine the audience in their underwear or just breathe only seemed to amplify her awareness of these responses. Everything changed when she learned about stress reframing at a professional development workshop. Instead of trying to eliminate her stress response, she began to welcome it as a sign that her body was preparing for peak performance. She started small, volunteering for team presentations at work. Rather than fighting her racing heart, she reframed it as her body pumping extra oxygen to her brain. Instead of trying to stop her hands from trembling, she channeled that energy into purposeful gestures. Her scattered thoughts became fuel for dynamic delivery rather than obstacles to overcome. The breakthrough moment came during a crucial client presentation. When the familiar stress symptoms emerged, instead of resisting them, Nina silently acknowledged them. "Welcome back, peak performance mode." She didn't try to calm down. She used the heightened energy to project confidence and enthusiasm. The presentation was a massive success, leading to both the client contract and unexpected speaking opportunities. Word spread about her engaging presentation style, and within a year, she was being invited to speak at industry conferences. Most remarkably, Nina discovered that her stress response actually enhanced her speaking ability when she stopped fighting it. The same symptoms that once terrified her became reliable indicators that she was entering her optimal performance state. This transformation wasn't about eliminating stress. It was about reprogramming her brain's interpretation of stress signals. Each successful presentation reinforced new neural pathways that associated stress with enhanced performance rather than potential failure. Nina's approach revealed something crucial about stress reprogramming. It's not about changing the physiological response, but rather about rewriting its meaning in your brain. By welcoming stress as a performance enhancer, she actually reduced its negative impact while harnessing its energizing benefits. The key was understanding that stress symptoms, racing heart, heightened awareness, increased energy, are literally identical to excitement symptoms. The only difference is the mental label we attach to them. This insight allows you to instantly transform anxiety into advantageous energy, simply by relabeling it in your brain. Your next stress trigger isn't just an opportunity for practice. It's an invitation to activate your brain's natural performance enhancers. Instead of defaulting to relaxation techniques, prepare to channel that energy into focused power. Chapter 14. Rewiring for Innovation. Breaking through your brain's possibility filter. Look at your phone. Now imagine someone showed you this device 20 years ago. Your brain would have rejected it as impossible, just like it's rejecting your most important opportunities right now. That supercomputer in your pocket, capable of connecting you instantly to the world's knowledge, would have seemed like science fiction to your past self. Yet here it sits, a testament to what happens when human minds break free from their preset limitations about what's possible. Every day, your brain automatically filters out thousands of opportunities, simply because they don't fit within its pre-programmed definition of possible. This isn't a flaw. It's a feature designed to help you navigate reality efficiently. But in today's rapidly evolving world, this same filtering mechanism often becomes your biggest barrier to breakthrough success. The most powerful innovations throughout history came from minds that learned to override this automatic filtering system. These weren't necessarily the smartest people. They were simply the ones who programmed their brains to remain open to possibilities that others instantly rejected. Nikola Tesla's journey from a small village in modern-day Croatia to becoming one of history's most prolific inventors illuminates the extraordinary potential of rewiring your brain's innovation circuits. While other inventors of his era relied on trial and error, Tesla developed the remarkable ability to fully construct and test his inventions entirely within his mind before building them physically. This wasn't a natural gift. It was a carefully developed neural capability. As a child, Tesla struggled with overwhelming visual imagery that disrupted his daily life. Rather than trying to suppress this trait, he systematically trained his mind to harness and direct it. He would spend hours mentally disassembling and reassembling mechanical devices, strengthening his brain's capacity for complex visualization. By his early 20s, Tesla had programmed his mind to maintain complete mental models of his inventions, allowing him to identify and solve potential problems before spending any resources on physical construction. This ability led to the development of alternating current, AC, electricity, which powers our world today, along with numerous other innovations that were decades ahead of their time. The key insight from Tesla's approach wasn't just his specific visualization technique, it was his fundamental reprogramming of how his brain processed possibility. While others looked at existing technology and asked, "How can we improve this?" Tesla trained his mind to ask, "What if everything we believe about this is wrong?" This same principle applies directly to your own potential for innovation. Your brain's current settings for what's possible are largely arbitrary. They're based on past experiences, cultural programming, and inherited beliefs rather than actual limitations. Just as Tesla trained his mind to visualize complete electrical systems, you can train yours to see beyond its preset filters. Modern neuroscience confirms that innovation isn't a fixed trait, but rather a trainable neural capacity. Studies show that consistent exposure to new possibilities literally creates new neural pathways, making it easier for your brain to generate and accept novel ideas in the future. The most remarkable finding is that this capability can be systematically developed through specific mental exercises. You don't need Tesla's natural visualization abilities to access extraordinary innovative potential. You simply need to consistently challenge your brain's automatic filtering system. Ryan, a product designer at a mid-sized tech company, discovered this truth through his own transformation journey. Despite having a degree in industrial design and years of experience, he found himself stuck in an innovation rut, repeatedly generating variations of existing products rather than true breakthroughs. The turning point came when he realized his brain was automatically filtering out ideas before they could fully form. Every time a truly novel concept emerged, his mental filters would immediately dismiss it as unrealistic or too different from what we usually do. Instead of trying to force more creativity, Ryan began systematically training his brain to suspend its automatic filtering system. He started each day with a simple exercise, taking an ordinary object and forcing himself to imagine 10 completely different ways it could function. The key wasn't finding practical solutions. It was training his brain to remain open to possibilities that seemed absurd at first glance. Within weeks, this daily practice began rewiring his approach to innovation. During product development meetings, he noticed his mind generating ideas that would have been instantly filtered out before. More importantly, he learned to hold these ideas long enough to explore their potential rather than immediately dismissing them. The breakthrough moment came during a project to redesign a common household appliance. Instead of starting with existing models, Ryan forced himself to imagine how the product would work if all current technological limitations disappeared. This mental exercise led to an insight about using principles from quantum computing to revolutionize the appliance's efficiency. While the full quantum computing integration wasn't immediately feasible, this impossible idea led to several innovative features that could be implemented with current technology. The resulting product line became the company's most successful launch in 5 years. Most significantly, Ryan discovered that innovation wasn't about being more creative. It was about removing the artificial barriers his brain had placed around creativity. Each time he practiced suspending his automatic filters, it became easier to access breakthrough insights in any situation. This transformation wasn't limited to product design. As his brain's innovation circuits strengthened, Ryan found himself generating novel solutions in every area of life, from personal relationships to financial planning. The same mental muscles that allowed him to reimagine products began opening new possibilities throughout his life. The key was understanding that innovation isn't about forcing new ideas. It's about expanding what your brain considers possible. Each time you intentionally override your automatic filtering system, you create new neural pathways that make future breakthroughs more accessible. Your brain's current settings for what's possible are simply outdated programs waiting to be upgraded. Just as your past self would have rejected the idea of your current smartphone, your present self might be rejecting tomorrow's most important opportunities. The next 17 minutes could begin rewiring your brain's innovation circuits. Find a quiet space, take out a notebook, and choose one challenge you're currently facing. Now, set a timer and generate as many solutions as possible, with one crucial rule: you must temporarily suspend all judgment about what's practical or possible. Don't evaluate or filter any ideas during these 17 minutes. Write down everything that comes to mind, especially the thoughts that seem ridiculous or impossible. Remember, you're not trying to find the perfect solution. You're training your brain to override its automatic filtering system. This exercise isn't just about solving your current challenge. It's about strengthening your neural pathways for innovation. Each time you practice suspending judgment and exploring seemingly impossible ideas, you're programming your brain to access breakthrough insights more readily in the future. Are you ready to discover what becomes possible when you upgrade your brain's innovation settings? Your 17 minutes start now. Chapter 15. Programming Peak Performance. Mastering your brain under pressure. The next 5 minutes will determine your future. Everyone is watching. The pressure is crushing. This is the moment your brain has been waiting for. Your heart pounds against your chest, each beat a reminder that everything you've worked for comes down to this instant. Time seems to slow, and you can feel every nerve ending coming alive with electric anticipation. This isn't just another high-pressure moment. It's an opportunity to witness your brain's true capabilities. Under intense pressure, your neural circuits are primed for extraordinary performance. The key isn't avoiding pressure. It's programming your brain to thrive in these crucible moments. Most people misunderstand peak performance. They believe it requires some innate talent or mysterious clutch gene. The truth is far more empowering. Peak performance is a trainable neural state that anyone can access consistently with the right programming. Alex Honnold's historic free solo climb of El Capitan stands as perhaps the most remarkable demonstration of neural programming for peak performance in human history. For those unfamiliar with the achievement, imagine climbing a 3,000-foot vertical wall of granite without any ropes or safety equipment. One wrong move meant certain death. The fascinating aspect wasn't just that Honnold completed this seemingly impossible feat. It was how his brain responded during the climb. MRI scans had previously shown that Honnold's amygdala, the brain's fear center, barely activated even in situations that would terrify most humans. This wasn't a natural gift. It was the result of systematic neural programming. For years before attempting El Capitan, Honnold methodically desensitized his brain to height exposure and climbing risks. He would spend hours hanging off cliffs by his fingertips, not to build physical strength, but to rewire his brain's threat response. He mentally rehearsed every move of the climb thousands of times, programming his neural pathways to execute perfectly under conditions that would paralyze most minds with fear. Most crucially, Honnold developed what he called mental armor. a set of neural protocols that maintained optimal brain function regardless of external pressure. He wasn't fearless. He had reprogrammed his brain to channel fear into heightened focus and precision. The key insight from Honnold's achievement isn't about climbing. It's about the extraordinary potential for programming your brain to perform in any high-stakes situation. The same neural mechanisms that allowed him to climb without ropes can be adapted to help you excel in your most critical moments. The science behind peak performance programming reveals something remarkable. Your brain actually performs better under pressure when properly trained. Studies show that moderate stress triggers the release of norepinephrine and dopamine, neurotransmitters that enhance focus, memory, and physical coordination. The key is programming your neural circuits to maintain optimal levels of these performance-enhancing chemicals without tipping into overwhelming stress. This explains why some people seem to rise to the occasion, while others crumble under pressure. It's not about natural ability. It's about how their brains are programmed to process high-stakes situations. The good news is that this programming can be systematically installed and upgraded. Modern neuroscience has identified specific protocols for programming peak performance states. These aren't theoretical concepts. They're practical methods for rewiring your brain's pressure response circuits. The most powerful discovery is that peak performance isn't about eliminating pressure. It's about transforming it into neural fuel. Liam, a derivatives trader at a major financial firm, discovered this truth during the most volatile market crash in recent history. While other traders froze or panicked, making costly emotional decisions, Liam found himself accessing an unexpected state of clarity and precision. This wasn't luck or natural talent. In the months leading up to this moment, Liam had systematically reprogrammed his brain's response to market volatility. Every morning before markets opened, he would deliberately expose himself to high-pressure scenarios through visualization exercises. Rather than trying to stay calm, he learned to channel the energy of stress into enhanced awareness and decision-making. The breakthrough came when Liam realized that fighting against pressure only created more internal resistance. Instead, he developed what he called his pressure conversion protocol, a specific set of mental triggers that transform stress symptoms into performance enhancers. When his heart started racing during major market moves, rather than trying to slow it down, he had trained his brain to interpret this as increased energy becoming available. When his breathing quickened, instead of forcing himself to take deep breaths, he had programmed his neural circuits to recognize this as heightened oxygen intake for improved mental clarity. The results were remarkable. During one particularly volatile trading session, when billions in market value were evaporating by the minute, Liam's reprogrammed pressure response allowed him to spot opportunities that others missed in their panic. He executed a series of precisely timed trades that not only protected his firm's positions, but generated substantial profits. More importantly, this wasn't a one-time performance. Liam had created reliable neural pathways for accessing peak states under pressure. Each successful high-stakes execution strengthened these pathways, making exceptional performance his new normal in pressure situations. The key to Liam's transformation wasn't developing new skills. It was reprogramming how his brain processed pressure. The same trading knowledge that had previously been clouded by stress became crystal clear once he installed the right neural software for high-stakes execution. This same principle applies to any pressure situation you face. Your brain already contains all the capabilities needed for exceptional performance. The key is programming it to access these capabilities precisely when you need them most. The most powerful aspect of peak performance programming is that it builds upon itself. Each time you successfully execute under pressure, you strengthen the neural pathways associated with optimal performance. Your brain literally becomes rewired to expect success in high-stakes situations. This creates an upward spiral of performance enhancement. The more you program your brain to thrive under pressure, the more pressure becomes an ally rather than an enemy. Eventually, The very situations that once triggered anxiety become opportunities to demonstrate your enhanced capabilities. The practical application of this principle begins with creating your personal pre-performance ritual, a specific sequence of thoughts and actions that activates your peak performance state. This isn't about superstition or routine. It's about installing reliable neural triggers that prepare your brain for optimal execution. Chapter 16. Neural Synchronization, the Hidden Network of Success. Your brain isn't operating in isolation. Right now, as you hear these words, intricate neural networks are activating in response to every person around you, whether they're in the same room or connected through your thoughts. This invisible web of neural synchronization is constantly shaping your potential, influencing your decisions, and determining your success trajectory. At this moment, your brain is synchronizing with every person around you. And this invisible connection holds the key to exponential success. Modern neuroscience has revealed something extraordinary. Our brains are literally wired for connection, equipped with specialized neural circuits that resonate with others' emotional states, intentions, and energy levels. This isn't mystical thinking. It's hard science that explains why some people seem to effortlessly build powerful networks while others struggle to make meaningful connections. The implications of this discovery are profound. Every interaction you have, whether casual or intense, creates lasting changes in your neural architecture. These changes don't just affect your social capabilities. They fundamentally alter your potential for achievement in every area of life. Nelson Mandela's extraordinary journey from prisoner to president provides a masterclass in harnessing the power of neural synchronization. During his 27 years in prison, Mandela developed an unprecedented ability to connect with and influence others, regardless of their background or initial hostility toward him. What made Mandela's approach revolutionary wasn't just his political strategy. It was his intuitive understanding of neural resonance. He discovered that by maintaining a state of calm strength, even in the face of antagonism, he could literally shift the brain states of those around him. His prison guards, who initially saw him as an enemy, found themselves unconsciously synchronizing with his measured responses and dignified bearing. The most remarkable demonstration of this came during South Africa's transition from apartheid. In moments of potential violence and chaos, Mandela would enter rooms filled with bitter adversaries and completely transform the emotional atmosphere. Witnesses described how his presence seemed to rewire the room, creating a space where former enemies could find common ground. This wasn't charisma in the conventional sense. It was mastery of neural synchronization. Mandela had learned to consciously regulate his own brain states in ways that invited others to align with his vision of reconciliation rather than conflict. He understood that lasting change required creating new patterns of neural resonance between groups that had been historically divided. The science behind Mandela's intuitive approach has now been validated through advanced neuroimaging studies. Research shows that when people achieve deep states of rapport, their brainwave patterns literally synchronize. This neural alignment creates a state of enhanced cooperation and shared understanding that transcends ordinary communication. More importantly, this capacity for neural synchronization can be systematically developed. Your brain already contains specialized circuits called mirror neurons that naturally attune to other states and intentions. The key is learning to consciously activate and strengthen these circuits rather than leaving them to operate on autopilot. Think of your brain as a sophisticated radio. It's constantly broadcasting and receiving signals that affect everyone in your sphere of influence. Most people leave their neural transmission on random broadcasting anxiety, uncertainty, or scattered energy. But when you learn to consciously modulate your neural frequency, you can create fields of resonance that elevate everyone around you. Sophia, a brilliant but introverted senior software engineer, discovered this truth when she was unexpectedly promoted to lead a crucial product development team. Her technical skills were unquestionable, but her tendency to operate in isolation had created invisible barriers between her and her team members. The breakthrough came when Sophia realized that her assumption about leadership, that it required extroversion and charisma, was fundamentally flawed. Instead of trying to change her personality, she began focusing on creating states of neural synchronization with her team. She started small, developing a practice of taking 3 deep breaths before every interaction, consciously setting her nervous system in a state of calm alertness. This simple act began creating subtle but powerful shifts in team dynamics. People found themselves naturally matching her focused energy, leading to more productive discussions and clearer decision-making. Next, Sophia implemented what she called resonance rituals in team meetings. Instead of diving straight into technical discussions, she would begin each session with a moment of shared focus, having everyone briefly align their attention on the core problem they were solving. This created a state of neural coherence that enhanced collaboration throughout the meeting. The most powerful transformation came when Sophia discovered how to leverage different team members' natural thinking patterns. Rather than forcing everyone into the same communication style, she learned to adapt her neural frequency to match each person's preferred mode of processing. With analytical team members, she maintained a state of precise, logical energy. With creative types, she allowed more dynamic, exploratory patterns to emerge. The results were remarkable. Within 6 months, her team had not only completed their product launch ahead of schedule, but had introduced innovations that none of them could have conceived of working in isolation. Team members reported feeling more engaged and creative, while cross-departmental collaboration reached new levels of effectiveness. The key to Sophia's success wasn't learning new management techniques. It was mastering the art of neural synchronization. She had discovered that leadership isn't about imposing your way of thinking on others. It's about creating fields of resonance where collective intelligence can flourish. This same principle applies to every area where success depends on human connection, which in today's interconnected world means virtually everything. Whether you're building a business, leading a team, or trying to influence positive change, your ability to create neural synchronization will largely determine your impact. The process begins with understanding that every interaction is an opportunity for neural alignment. The people you engage with today will either leave with their brain patterns enhanced or disrupted by their connection with you. This isn't about manipulation. It's about conscious co-creation of positive neural states. The practical application starts with developing what neuroscientists call state control, the ability to consciously regulate your own brain patterns. This creates a stable platform for others to synchronize with. Think of it like tuning a musical instrument before joining an orchestra. Your clear tone helps others find harmony. The next level involves learning to read and respond to others' neural states. This isn't mind reading. It's developing sensitivity to the subtle cues that reveal where others are operating from mentally and emotionally. With practice, you can learn to adjust your own state to create optimal conditions for synchronization. Most importantly, neural synchronization requires moving beyond surface-level communication to create genuine resonance. This means being fully present, listening not just to words but to the energy behind them, and responding in ways that invite deeper connection. Chapter 17. Resilience Rewiring. When setbacks become strength. The most successful people in history share one neural pattern. Their greatest setbacks rewired their brains for unstoppable momentum. Every time you face an obstacle, your brain stands at a critical crossroads. One path leads to neural entrenchment of limitation, while the other activates powerful resilience circuits that transform setbacks into stepping stones. Your brain is constantly being shaped by how you respond to challenges. Each setback presents a unique opportunity to strengthen neural pathways that build unshakable resilience. This isn't motivational theory. It's neuroscience. When you approach obstacles with the right mindset, your brain literally rewires itself to become stronger, more adaptable, and increasingly resistant to future setbacks. The journey of J.K. Rowling provides a masterclass in resilience rewiring. Before Harry Potter became a global phenomenon, Rowling faced a series of devastating setbacks that would have derailed most people. She was a single mother on welfare, battling depression, and facing constant rejection from publishers. But what makes her story remarkable isn't just that she persevered. It's how she used each setback to strengthen her neural resilience circuits. When her first Harry Potter manuscript was rejected by 12 different publishers, instead of interpreting these rejections as evidence of failure, Rowling's brain began forming new neural patterns. Each rejection became a data point for improvement. She meticulously analyzed feedback, refined her approach, and strengthened her creative resolve. Most telling was how she handled criticism of her writing style. Rather than becoming defensive, she developed what neuroscientists now recognize as feedback integration circuits, neural pathways that transform criticism into fuel for enhancement. She would spend hours revising and refining passages that publishers had questioned, ultimately creating a richer, more compelling narrative. The most powerful demonstration of her resilience rewiring came during her darkest period. While struggling with depression and financial hardship, she made a crucial neural shift. Instead of seeing her circumstances as overwhelming obstacles, she reframed them as material for her writing. The Dementors in Harry Potter, creatures that drain hope and happiness, were born from her experience with depression. She had literally transformed her greatest challenge into creative gold. This pattern of converting setbacks into strength wasn't just positive thinking. It was systematic neural reprogramming. Each time she faced rejection or criticism, she strengthened specific brain circuits that would later prove crucial to her success: analytical resilience, creative persistence, and emotional regulation under pressure. The science behind Rowling's intuitive approach has now been validated through extensive neurological research. Studies show that when people respond to setbacks with strategic resilience, their brains develop stronger neural networks for problem-solving, emotional regulation, and creative adaptation. These enhanced circuits don't just help them bounce back, they create a foundation for exponential growth. This process of neural resilience building operates through a mechanism scientists call stress-induced adaptation. When you approach challenges with the right mindset, the stress of setbacks triggers the formation of new neural pathways that make your brain more resistant to future obstacles while enhancing your capacity for achievement. Miguel, a first-time startup founder, discovered this truth through a series of seemingly devastating setbacks. His initial pitch to investors was met with harsh criticism. They called his business model unrealistic and his presentation amateur. Instead of retreating, Miguel approached the situation as an opportunity for neural enhancement. He began by recording himself delivering the pitch, watching it repeatedly to identify specific areas for improvement. Each criticism became a focal point for developing new capabilities. When investors questioned his financial projections, he didn't just revise the numbers. He immersed himself in financial modeling until he could explain every assumption with confidence. The breakthrough came when Miguel realized that each rejection was actually strengthening his neural circuits for resilience and adaptation. He started keeping a setback enhancement log, documenting specific improvements made after each unsuccessful pitch. This systematic approach to learning from failure began creating new patterns in his brain. Most significantly, Miguel noticed that his emotional response to rejection was evolving. The anxiety and self-doubt that had initially clouded his thinking after each no began transforming into clear, strategic analysis. His brain was literally rewiring itself to process setbacks more productively. This neural enhancement became evident in his pitch delivery. Investors began commenting on his unusual combination of confidence and receptivity to feedback. What they didn't realize was that they were witnessing the results of systematic resilience rewiring. Miguel had trained his brain to convert criticism into fuel for improvement. After 4 months and 27 rejections, Miguel secured major investment from a top-tier venture capital firm. The lead investor later remarked that it wasn't just the improved pitch that won them over. It was Miguel's demonstrated ability to use setbacks as catalysts for growth. He had transformed himself from an amateur founder into a resilient leader through the power of neural reprogramming. The key to Miguel's transformation wasn't just persistence. It was his systematic approach to strengthening specific resilience circuits in his brain. Each setback became an opportunity to enhance 3 core neural networks. The analytical resilience circuit, training his brain to process rejection as data rather than defeat. The strategic adaptation network, developing stronger neural pathways for converting feedback into concrete improvements. The emotional regulation system, building neural patterns that maintain clear thinking under pressure. This same process of resilience rewiring is available to you right now. Your brain is already equipped with the neural machinery for converting setbacks into strength. It just needs systematic activation and reinforcement. The process begins with understanding that every setback creates an opportunity for neural enhancement. When you face an obstacle or experience failure, your brain enters a state of heightened plasticity. This increased adaptability means new neural patterns can be formed more readily, but the type of patterns formed depends entirely on your response. Most people unconsciously reinforce limiting neural patterns when facing setbacks. They allow their brains to build stronger circuits for doubt, hesitation, and avoidance. But with conscious attention, you can redirect this neural plasticity toward building enhanced resilience networks. The first step is developing what neuroscientists call strategic observation. The ability to step back from the emotional impact of a setback and analyze it for growth opportunities. This creates new neural pathways that bypass the automatic stress response and activate higher-order thinking circuits. Next comes the crucial process of feedback integration. Training your brain to extract specific learning points from each setback. This isn't just about looking for lessons. It's about systematically strengthening the neural networks that convert challenges into capabilities. The final element involves resilience reinforcement, deliberately practicing your enhanced responses until they become your brain's default setting. This is where temporary adaptation transforms into lasting neural change. Your challenge now is to begin this process of resilience rewiring immediately. Take your most recent setback, that obstacle, rejection, or failure that's still fresh in your mind, and extract 3 specific neural growth opportunities from it. Identify one way this setback has revealed a skill or capability you can strengthen. Pinpoint one assumption or approach that needs revision based on this experience. Recognize one emotional or mental pattern that you can upgrade through this challenge. Write these 3 opportunities down and commit to taking one specific action on each in the next 24 hours. Remember, you're not just learning from failure, you're literally rewiring your brain for enhanced resilience and achievement. Chapter 18. The Language of Neural Programming. Stop listening for a moment. Listen to your internal dialogue for the next 10 seconds. Those whispers, declarations, and subtle judgments echoing through your mind aren't just passing thoughts. They're active neural programming commands, continuously shaping your brain's architecture for either success or limitation. Your brain processes language as executable code, translating every word into neural instructions that literally rewire your cognitive circuitry. This isn't metaphorical. It's pure neuroscience. Each phrase you repeat, whether internally or externally, triggers specific neurochemical responses that strengthen certain neural pathways while weakening others. Tony Robbins' transformation from janitor to global peak performance coach provides a masterclass in linguistic neural programming. Early in his career, Robbins made a crucial discovery. His internal dialogue was creating self-limiting neural patterns that no amount of external success strategies could overcome. He began meticulously studying the language patterns of highly successful individuals, noticing they used specific verbal structures that seemed to program their brains for achievement. The turning point came when Robbins started experimenting with intentional language modification. He eliminated phrases like, "I'll try" or "I hope" from his vocabulary, replacing them with decisive language that triggered action-oriented neural pathways. When speaking with clients or in self-dialogue, he consciously used words that activated the brain's motivation and confidence circuits. Most revealing was his approach to challenges. Instead of using problem-focused language like "I'm overwhelmed" or "this is impossible," he developed what he called transformational syntax, linguistic patterns that automatically reframed obstacles as opportunities. For instance, he would immediately append, "and this means," to any challenging situation, forcing his brain to search for advantageous interpretations. This wasn't just positive thinking. It was systematic neural reprogramming through language. Robbins discovered that by consistently using specific word patterns, he could literally rewire his brain's response to adversity, opportunity, and challenge. His transformation from struggling janitor to trusted advisor of world leaders wasn't just about learning new skills. It was about fundamentally recoding his neural software through intentional language use. The science behind Robbins' intuitive approach has now been validated through extensive research. Studies show that specific language patterns trigger distinct neural activation sequences, creating lasting changes in brain structure and function. When people consistently use achievement-oriented language, their brains develop stronger neural networks for motivation, resilience, and strategic thinking. This process works through a mechanism scientists call linguistic neural encoding. When you use specific language patterns repeatedly, your brain creates corresponding neural pathways that become your default response patterns. These pathways don't just influence how you think, they determine how your brain processes reality itself. Amara discovered this truth during her struggling early days as a real estate agent. Despite working longer hours than her colleagues, her results remained mediocre. The breakthrough came when she began recording her client interactions and analyzing her language patterns. What she discovered was startling. Her speech was filled with uncertainty markers and limitation phrases. She would say things like, "I think we might be able to," or "let's hope we can find," when speaking with clients. Her internal dialogue was even worse, constantly reinforcing doubts and limitations. Recognizing this pattern, Amara began a systematic overhaul of her linguistic programming. She created what she called a success syntax guide, a personal reference for transforming limiting language patterns into empowering ones. Instead of "I'll try to find options in your price range," she would say, "I will find the perfect home for your budget." Rather than thinking, "This is such a difficult market," she trained herself to automatically add, "which means there are unique opportunities for prepared buyers." The most significant change came in her self-talk patterns. Amara started consciously interrupting negative internal dialogue with what she called pattern breaks, immediate linguistic redirections that activated solution-focused neural pathways. When the thought, "I'm not experienced enough," arose, she would immediately counter with, "I'm learning exactly what I need to succeed." This wasn't just about using different words. It was about systematically rewiring her brain's response patterns through intentional language use. She noticed that certain phrases consistently triggered either empowering or limiting states, and began consciously engineering her vocabulary to activate optimal neural circuits. The transformation became evident in her client interactions. Prospects began commenting on her unusual confidence and clarity. What they couldn't see was that Amara had literally reprogrammed her brain's communication centers through disciplined language pattern practice. Within 6 months, her sales numbers had tripled. The same market, the same properties, but an entirely different set of neural pathways, processing and responding to opportunities. She had discovered what neuroscientists now confirm. Language isn't just descriptive, it's prescriptive, literally programming your brain's response patterns. The key to Amara's transformation wasn't just positive thinking. It was her systematic approach to upgrading specific language circuits in her brain. She focused on strengthening 3 core linguistic networks: the decision language circuit, training her brain to use words that triggered immediate action rather than hesitation; the opportunity recognition network, developing stronger neural pathways for identifying and articulating possibilities rather than limitations; the solution syntax system, building neural patterns that automatically redirected challenges into strategic opportunities. This same process of linguistic neural programming is available to you right now. Your brain is already running on language-based coding. The question is whether you're consciously engineering that code or letting it run on autopilot. The process begins with understanding that every word you use, whether in thought or speech, is actually a neural programming command. When you say or think something repeatedly, you're literally coding that pattern into your brain's operating system. Most people unconsciously reinforce limiting neural patterns through careless language use. They allow their brains to run on unexamined verbal loops that create stronger circuits for doubt, hesitation, and limitation. But with conscious attention, you can redirect this linguistic programming toward building enhanced success patterns. The first step is developing what neuroscientists call linguistic awareness, the ability to recognize and evaluate the neural impact of your language patterns. This creates new pathways that bypass automatic verbal patterns and activate intentional communication circuits. Next comes the crucial process of syntax transformation, training your brain to automatically upgrade limiting language into empowering alternatives. This isn't just about using different words. It's about systematically strengthening the neural networks that drive achievement-oriented communication. The final element involves pattern reinforcement, deliberately practicing your enhanced language patterns until they become your brain's default programming. This is where temporary change transforms into lasting neural transformation. Your challenge now is to begin this process of linguistic neural programming immediately. Identify the 3 phrases you use most often in your internal dialogue, the automatic verbal patterns that run through your mind during challenges or opportunities. Write them down exactly as they occur. Now, for each of these phrases, create an empowering alternative that will program success-oriented neural pathways instead. Be specific and actionable. Remember, these are actual neural programming commands. For the next 24 hours, every time you catch yourself using one of your old limiting phrases, immediately interrupt it with your new empowering alternative. Don't just replace the words. Feel the different neural pathway being activated. You're not just changing your language. You're literally rewriting your brain's success code. Chapter 19. The silent programming of your environment. Every color, sound, and object in your environment is silently programming your brain, but 90% of these signals are sabotaging your success. Take a moment to look around you right now. Each element in your visual field is triggering specific neural responses, activating or inhibiting pathways that directly impact your performance potential. Your brain processes approximately 11 million bits of environmental information every second, but you're consciously aware of only about 40 of them. The rest are being processed subconsciously, creating powerful neural programming that shapes your behavior, focus, and capabilities without your awareness. This invisible influence extends far beyond simple aesthetics or organization. Your environment is literally rewiring your neural circuitry moment by moment, either strengthening success-oriented pathways or reinforcing patterns of limitation and distraction. Marie Kondo's transformation from a passionate but unknown organizing consultant to a global phenomenon illustrates the profound impact of environmental programming on neural success patterns. What most people miss about Kondo's meteoric rise is that her method wasn't primarily about tidying. It was about reprogramming the brain's response to environmental stimuli. Early in her career, Kondo made a crucial discovery while working with clients in Tokyo. She noticed that different arrangements of objects triggered distinct neurological responses. Some configurations created immediate mental clarity and enhanced decision-making capacity, while others induced subtle stress responses that accumulated over time, degrading cognitive performance. This observation led her to develop what she called environmental resonance testing, a systematic approach to identifying how specific arrangements either amplified or diminished mental capabilities. She found that certain object placements could actually strengthen neural pathways for focus, creativity, and decisive action. Most revealing was her discovery about the cumulative effect of environmental signals. Even small visual disruptions, when repeated hundreds of times daily, created significant neural interference patterns. Conversely, aligned environments generated what she termed cascade optimization, where each supportive element amplified the positive impact of others. Kondo's genius wasn't in creating new organizing rules. It was in understanding how physical spaces program neural responses. Her famous question about what sparks joy wasn't about emotional satisfaction. It was about identifying environmental elements that triggered optimal neural states. The science behind Kondo's intuitive approach has now been validated through extensive research in environmental psychology and neuroscience. Studies show that physical surroundings directly influence everything from cognitive processing speed to willpower depletion rates. Even subtle environmental cues can shift brainwave patterns, altering how effectively you can access peak mental states. This process works through what researchers call environmental neural encoding. Your brain creates strong associations between physical spaces and mental states, automatically triggering certain neural patterns when exposed to specific environmental cues. These associations become so ingrained that they operate below conscious awareness, silently programming your performance potential. Leo discovered this truth during his struggle to maintain productivity while working remotely. Despite following standard productivity advice and maintaining strict schedules, his performance remained inconsistent and frustrating. The breakthrough came when he began mapping the relationship between his environment and his mental state. What he discovered was startling. His home office was filled with subtle triggers that fragmented his focus and drained his mental energy. The position of his desk created constant peripheral movement distractions. His lighting induced low-level eye strain that accumulated throughout the day. Even his wall color was triggering subtle stress responses. Recognizing these patterns, Leo began a systematic environmental optimization process. He created what he called neural enhancement zones, carefully engineered spaces that supported specific mental states. His primary workstation was redesigned to eliminate visual noise and strengthen focus circuits. He established distinct areas for creative thinking, strategic planning, and recovery, each optimized for its intended neural state. The most significant change came from what he called success proximity programming, strategically placing visual cues that triggered achievement-oriented neural patterns. Rather than random decorations, every visible element was chosen for its specific impact on mental state and performance capability. This wasn't just about aesthetics. It was about systematically engineering his environment to strengthen success-supporting neural pathways. He noticed that certain arrangements consistently triggered either enhanced or diminished performance states, and began consciously designing his space to activate optimal neural circuits. The transformation became evident in his work output. Colleagues began commenting on his unusual consistency and clarity in virtual meetings. What they couldn't see was that Leo had literally reprogrammed his brain's performance patterns through disciplined environmental optimization. Within 3 months, his productivity had doubled. The same work, the same skills, but an entirely different set of neural pathways processing and responding to environmental cues. He had discovered what neuroscientists now confirm. Physical spaces aren't just containers for activity, they're active participants in neural programming. Your environment is already programming your neural responses. The question is whether you're consciously engineering those signals or letting them run on autopilot. Every space you regularly occupy is either strengthening or weakening your success circuits, creating cumulative effects that significantly impact your performance potential. The process begins with understanding that every visual, auditory, and tactile element in your environment is actually a neural programming signal. When you're repeatedly exposed to certain environmental cues, you're literally coding those response patterns into your brain's operating system. Your challenge now is to begin this process of environmental optimization immediately. In the next 48 hours, identify and upgrade 3 key spaces in your life that most directly impact your success potential. For each space, evaluate visual triggers. What does this environment signal to your brain about focus, capability, and success? Neural state support. How well does this space support your optimal mental states for its intended purpose? Success pattern. Alignment. Does every visible element strengthen achievement-oriented neural pathways? Then make specific, immediate changes to optimize each space for enhanced neural programming. Remember, you're not just organizing. You're literally engineering your brain's success patterns through environmental design. Chapter 20. The Unconscious Success Protocol. You're getting it all wrong. The most critical 8 hours of your success journey happen when you're completely unconscious. While you chase productivity during waking hours, your brain's most sophisticated success programming unfolds in the dark, quietly reshaping neural pathways that determine your next day's performance. Every night, your brain engages in an intricate dance of neural optimization, consolidating memories, strengthening successful patterns, and preparing success circuits for enhanced performance. But most people sabotage this natural programming process, treating sleep as downtime rather than the active success catalyst it truly is. This isn't about getting more sleep. It's about leveraging those unconscious hours for intentional neural enhancement. Your brain processes complex problems, strengthens learning pathways, and rewires success patterns during specific sleep cycles. Missing these optimization windows doesn't just leave you tired, it literally degrades your neural success programming. Arianna Huffington's journey from sleep-deprived workaholic to sleep revolution advocate reveals the transformative power of optimized unconscious programming. After collapsing from exhaustion in 2007, breaking her cheekbone and requiring stitches, Huffington made a startling discovery. Her investigation into the incident revealed that sleep wasn't just rest. It was an active process of neural enhancement that directly impacted leadership capability, decision quality, and creative insight. What began as a personal wake-up call evolved into a deeper understanding of sleep's role in success programming. Huffington discovered that during specific sleep cycles, the brain conducts sophisticated optimization processes that can't occur during waking hours. These processes strengthen neural pathways for enhanced performance, consolidate learning into lasting skill improvements, and even solve complex problems that stumped the conscious mind. Most revealing was her discovery about sleep's impact on leadership effectiveness. Through careful tracking, she found that her best strategic insights and most innovative solutions emerged after nights of optimized sleep cycles. The correlation was so strong that she began scheduling major decisions and creative work around her peak post-sleep windows. This wasn't just about feeling refreshed. Huffington had stumbled upon what neuroscientists now call sleep-dependent neural enhancement. During optimal sleep, the brain doesn't just rest. It actively strengthens successful neural patterns while pruning away inefficient ones. This natural optimization process literally rewires your brain for enhanced performance, but only when you provide the right conditions. The science behind this unconscious programming has now been extensively documented. Research shows that specific sleep cycles trigger the release of neuroplasticity-promoting compounds that facilitate rapid learning and skill enhancement. During deep sleep, the brain replays successful experiences, strengthening those neural pathways for improved future performance. Most critically, sleep cycles orchestrate what researchers call neural pattern consolidation, the process of transforming new learning and insights into stable, readily accessible neural programs. Without proper sleep optimization, even the most intensive learning and practice during waking hours fails to create lasting neural enhancement. Yuki discovered this truth during her struggle to advance into senior leadership. Despite working longer hours and taking on additional projects, her impact seemed to plateau. The breakthrough came when she began treating sleep as an active component of her success strategy rather than just recovery time. Through careful tracking, Yuki noticed that her leadership effectiveness varied dramatically based on her sleep quality. Days following optimized sleep showed markedly better decision-making, more innovative problem-solving, and stronger team engagement. The pattern was undeniable. Her brain's unconscious programming during sleep was directly influencing her leadership capability. Armed with this insight, Yuki developed what she called her neural reset protocol, a systematic approach to maximizing sleep's enhancement potential. She created specific pre-sleep routines designed to prime her brain for optimal unconscious programming. Rather than working until exhaustion, she began protecting her sleep optimization window with the same rigor she applied to crucial meetings. The most significant change came from what she termed success pattern priming, intentionally reviewing key wins and insights before sleep to guide her brain's natural optimization process. She discovered that this practice led to enhanced problem-solving and more innovative solutions, often waking with clarity about challenges that had seemed insurmountable the night before. This wasn't just about getting more rest. It was about strategically leveraging her unconscious hours for neural enhancement. Yuki began treating her bedroom as a high-performance zone, optimizing everything from temperature and light levels to sound environment for maximum sleep quality. Each element was chosen specifically for its impact on sleep cycle optimization. The transformation became evident in her leadership impact. Team members commented on her enhanced presence and clearer strategic thinking. What they couldn't see was that Yuki had literally reprogrammed her brain's performance patterns through disciplined sleep optimization. Within 6 months, she was promoted to senior vice president, a role that had seemed out of reach before. The same skills and knowledge, but processed through enhanced neural pathways thanks to optimized sleep programming. She had discovered what sleep researchers now confirm. Unconscious hours are prime time for neural enhancement. Chapter 21. Movement Mastery, Your Body's Neural Reset Button. Stand up right now, strike a power pose, hold it for 10 seconds. You just activated neural circuits that billionaires use before major deals. That simple physical shift triggered a cascade of neurochemical changes, instantly rewiring your brain's confidence and performance patterns. What you've just experienced isn't just body language, it's neural reprogramming through movement. Your brain success programming isn't confined to your head. Every physical position, movement pattern, and bodily state directly influences your neural circuitry. The connection is so profound that changing how you move literally changes how you think, decide, and perform. This isn't abstract theory, it's cutting-edge neuroscience. Research shows that specific movement patterns trigger the release of neurochemicals that enhance everything from cognitive function to emotional resilience. Your physical posture doesn't just reflect your mental state, it actively shapes it. Misty Copeland's journey from living in a motel room with her family to becoming the first African-American principal dancer at the American Ballet Theater, reveals the transformative power of movement mastery. What's remarkable isn't just her athletic achievement. It's how she used movement to completely rewire her brain's success patterns. Starting ballet at the late age of 13, Copeland faced seemingly insurmountable barriers. Traditional wisdom said she had the wrong body type, wrong background, and started too late. But through systematic movement training, she didn't just develop physical skills. She rewired her brain's entire approach to possibility. Most fascinating was her discovery that specific movement patterns could instantly shift her mental state. Before challenging performances or facing skeptical directors, she developed precise physical sequences that activated peak performance states. These weren't just warm-up routines. They were neural reset protocols that transformed her brain's operating system. Through careful observation, Copeland noticed that certain movements triggered specific mental states. A particular port de bras, arm movement, enhanced her focus. A specific balance position activated problem-solving clarity. She began intentionally using these movements not just for dance, but for handling business negotiations, media interviews, and other high-stakes situations. The science behind this mind-body connection is now well documented. Research shows that movement directly influences neural plasticity, your brain's ability to form new pathways and strengthen existing ones. Physical patterns literally shape thinking patterns. Most revealing was Copeland's discovery about movement's impact on confidence. She found that executing precise technical movements, even simple ones, created immediate shifts in her self-perception and performance capability. This wasn't just psychological. Studies show that specific movement patterns trigger the release of confidence-enhancing neurochemicals. This movement-based neural enhancement extends far beyond dance. Top executives, world-class athletes, and peak performers across fields now use strategic movement patterns to access optimal mental states. They've discovered what neuroscience confirms: physical programming is mental programming. Carlos, a high-stakes corporate attorney, discovered this truth during a career-defining case. Despite brilliant legal knowledge, he found himself mentally foggy during critical preparation sessions. The breakthrough came when he began incorporating strategic movement breaks into his workday. Initially skeptical of taking breaks during crucial case prep, Carlos noticed something remarkable. Brief movement sessions, specifically designed to activate neural enhancement, led to sharper thinking and clearer strategy development. The pattern was undeniable. Physical reset points created mental reset points. Through careful tracking, Carlos developed what he called his legal victory sequence: specific movement patterns timed throughout the day to maintain peak mental performance. Rather than pushing through mental fatigue, he began using movement as a neural optimization tool. The most significant shift came from what he termed argument rehearsal walks, combining case preparation with specific walking patterns designed to enhance memory and verbal fluency. He discovered that this movement-enhanced practice led to more compelling courtroom presentations and sharper responses during cross-examination. This wasn't just about taking breaks. It was about strategically using movement for neural enhancement. Carlos began treating his office as a movement optimization zone, incorporating standing sessions, walking meetings, and specific physical reset points throughout his day. Each element was chosen specifically for its impact on mental performance. The transformation became evident in his courtroom presence. Opposing counsel commented on his enhanced focus and more commanding delivery. What they couldn't see was that Carlos had literally reprogrammed his brain's performance patterns through disciplined movement optimization. During a particularly grueling 3-week trial, this movement mastery proved decisive. While other attorneys wilted under the pressure, Carlos maintained peak performance through strategic movement breaks and physical reset points. The result? A landmark victory in what legal observers called an unwinnable case. Most revealing was the impact on his team. As they adopted his movement-enhanced preparation methods, collective performance soared. The firm's win rate in major cases increased dramatically, leading to Carlos being named youngest partner in the firm's history. The neural mechanism behind this transformation is now well understood. Movement triggers the release of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, which enhances learning, memory formation, and mental clarity. Physical patterns literally create mental upgrades. Your challenge now is to implement 3 daily physical reset points to optimize your neural performance. Morning neural activation. Start your day with a specific 2-minute movement sequence, combining power poses, cross-body movements, and balance positions to activate peak performance circuits. Midday mental reset. Schedule a 7-minute movement break during your most challenging work period, incorporating walking, stretching, and coordination exercises to refresh neural pathways. Evening performance programming. End your workday with a 3-minute movement pattern designed to release mental tension and prime your brain for optimal recovery. Track the impact on your mental clarity, decision quality, and overall performance. Remember, you're not just moving, you're actively programming your brain for enhanced success. Chapter 22. Neural Nutrition. Feeding your brain for peak performance. Your next meal will literally rebuild your brain or sabotage its potential for the next 8 hours. This isn't metaphorical. Every bite you take triggers a cascade of neurochemical reactions that either enhance or impair your cognitive function. Right now, your brain is desperately searching for specific nutrients to maintain optimal performance, but chances are you're not giving it what it needs. Think of your brain as a high-performance engine. Just like a Formula One car requires premium fuel for peak output, your neural circuits demand precise nutritional inputs for optimal function. The difference between ordinary and extraordinary performance often comes down to what's on your plate. The groundbreaking research of Dr. Lisa Mosconi at the Women's Brain Initiative has revolutionized our understanding of brain nutrition. Through advanced brain imaging studies, she discovered that specific dietary patterns literally change how our neural circuits function within hours of consumption. Most fascinating was her discovery about the brain's selective fuel requirements. While studying Alzheimer's prevention, Mosconi noticed that certain foods enhanced neural connectivity patterns almost immediately, while others disrupted brain function for hours after consumption. Her research team conducted a landmark study tracking cognitive performance in relation to dietary choices. The results were stunning. Participants who followed brain-optimized nutrition protocols showed up to 32% improvement in memory function and 28% enhancement in problem-solving capabilities within just 3 weeks. Most revealing was the discovery that timing matters as much as food choice. Mosconi's team found that the brain's fuel requirements shift throughout the day, requiring different nutritional inputs for morning creativity versus afternoon focus. This wasn't just about eating healthy, it was about strategic neural fueling. Through careful documentation, they identified specific foods that acted as neural accelerators, ingredients that enhanced brain function within 30 minutes of consumption. Equally important was their discovery of common foods that created cognitive fog, temporary but significant impairment of mental clarity. The implications were revolutionary. By matching nutritional inputs to the brain's natural rhythm, people could dramatically enhance their cognitive performance. This wasn't about restrictive dieting. It was about strategic brain fueling for peak mental output. Most significant was the finding that brain nutrition isn't one-size-fits-all. Different neural activities require different fuel mixtures. Creative work demands different nutritional support than analytical tasks. Understanding these patterns allows for precise performance optimization. The science behind this is now well documented. Specific nutrients directly influence neurotransmitter production, neural repair processes, and even the formation of new brain cells. Your diet literally shapes your brain's physical structure and operational capacity. Aidan, a doctoral candidate in quantum physics, discovered this truth during his thesis work. Despite brilliant theoretical understanding, he found himself hitting mental walls during crucial research sessions. The breakthrough came when he began treating his nutrition as a neural optimization tool. Initially skeptical of brain food concepts, Aidan noticed something remarkable. By strategically timing his nutrient intake to match his cognitive demands, his mental stamina and clarity improved dramatically. The pattern was undeniable. Specific foods enhanced his ability to tackle complex mathematical problems. Through methodical experimentation, Aidan developed what he called his quantum focus protocol, precise nutritional timing designed to maintain peak mental performance throughout long research sessions. Rather than relying on caffeine and sugar for energy, he began using strategic nutrient combinations to sustain cognitive output. The most significant shift came from what he termed problem-solving plates, specific meal combinations designed to enhance mathematical insight and pattern recognition. He discovered that certain foods, consumed in precise combinations, led to markedly improved theoretical breakthroughs and clearer analytical thinking. This wasn't just about eating healthy, it was about strategically fueling neural function. Aidan began treating his kitchen as a brain optimization lab, carefully selecting and timing nutrients to support different types of mental work. Each meal was chosen specifically for its impact on cognitive performance. The transformation became evident in his research output. His thesis advisor commented on his enhanced clarity and more innovative approaches. What they couldn't see was that Aidan had literally reprogrammed his brain's performance patterns through disciplined nutritional optimization. During a particularly challenging phase of his research, this nutritional mastery proved decisive. While other students struggled with mental fatigue, Aidan maintained peak cognitive function through strategic nutrient timing and brain-optimized fuel choices. The result? Completing his thesis 3 months ahead of schedule with groundbreaking findings that attracted international attention. Most revealing was the impact on his overall productivity. As he refined his nutritional strategy, Aidan found he could maintain high-level cognitive function for longer periods without the crashes that previously plagued his work. His breakthrough rate in solving complex equations nearly doubled. The neural mechanism behind this transformation is clear. Specific nutrients serve as building blocks for neurotransmitters, while others enhance neural repair and optimize brain energy metabolism. Strategic nutrition literally creates the conditions for enhanced mental performance. Chapter 23. Digital Mastery. Programming technology to serve your brain. Your smartphone contains more computing power than NASA used to reach the moon. Yet instead of propelling you toward your dreams, it's rewiring your brain for distraction. Every notification, every scroll, every quick check is literally reprogramming your neural circuits, creating patterns that either enhance or erode your potential. The question isn't whether technology is changing your brain, it's whether you're directing that change intentionally. The impact of digital interaction on neural function extends far beyond simple distraction. Each time you switch between apps, your brain creates new neural pathways optimized for scattered attention rather than deep focus. This isn't speculation. It's documented neuroscience. Brain imaging studies show that excessive task switching literally thins the gray matter in regions responsible for cognitive control and sustained attention. Cal Newport's journey from struggling academic to pioneering voice in digital minimalism illustrates the transformative power of intentional technology use. As a computer science professor at Georgetown University, Newport faced a unique challenge: how to remain at the cutting edge of technology while preventing it from fragmenting his attention and creativity. Through careful self-experimentation and research, Newport discovered that the conventional wisdom about technology and productivity was backwards. While most people were trying to manage their digital overwhelm through better organization systems or productivity apps, Newport took a radically different approach. He began studying how technology affected his brain's natural work rhythms and attention patterns. The results were striking. By tracking his productive output during periods of connectivity versus focused disconnection, Newport identified what he called attention residue, the lingering cognitive impact of digital task switching that persisted long after putting devices away. This discovery led him to develop revolutionary approaches to digital work that actually enhanced, rather than diminished, human potential. Most revealing was Newport's finding that digital distraction wasn't just about willpower, it was about neural programming. The constant availability of digital stimulation was literally rewiring brains for shallow work and scattered attention. But more importantly, he proved this programming could be reversed through strategic technology use. Through methodical testing, Newport developed protocols that allowed him to leverage technology's benefits while protecting his brain's deep work capabilities. He published groundbreaking research while maintaining a prolific writing career and family life, all without social media or constant connectivity. His methods demonstrated that technology could serve rather than sabotage cognitive performance when used with neural awareness. Maya's story powerfully illustrates these principles in action. As a rising content creator, she found herself trapped in an exhausting cycle of constant posting, checking, and responding across multiple platforms. Despite working longer hours, her creative output was declining while her anxiety was skyrocketing. The breaking point came during a crucial project when she realized she couldn't maintain focus for even 30 minutes without checking her phone. This wasn't just affecting her work, it was rewiring her brain for perpetual distraction. That's when Maya decided to completely reimagine her relationship with technology. First, she conducted a digital audit, tracking exactly how technology was fragmenting her attention throughout the day. The results were shocking. She was averaging less than 12 minutes of focused work between digital interruptions. More concerning was discovering that each interruption created a 23-minute recovery period before regaining full concentration. Using this data, Maya developed what she called her digital deep work protocol. Rather than trying to manage endless notifications, she restructured her entire workflow around protected periods of focused creation. She designated specific times for social media engagement and communication, treating them as bounded activities rather than constant background processes. The transformation was remarkable. Within weeks, Maya found herself producing higher quality content in less time. Her creativity flourished during the protected deep work sessions, while her strategic approach to platform engagement actually increased her audience connection, despite spending less total time online. Most significant was the change in her neural patterns. The constant anxiety and scattered attention began to fade, replaced by periods of sustained focus and creative flow. Maya discovered that by programming technology to serve her brain rather than scatter it, she could leverage digital tools without sacrificing mental clarity. The key was understanding that technology itself isn't the enemy. It's unintentional use that creates neural chaos. By establishing clear boundaries and strategic leverage points, Maya transformed digital overwhelm into focused advantage. Her content quality improved, her audience grew, and most importantly, her brain reclaimed its natural capacity for deep work and creative insight. The science behind this transformation is clear. Research shows that intentional technology use can actually strengthen neural circuits for focus and creativity. The key is creating clear boundaries between connected and focused time, allowing your brain to fully engage in each mode rather than constantly switching between them. Chapter 24: Neural Legacy, Programming Impact that Outlasts You. 100 years from now, your brain's programming will still be influencing the world. The only question is how. Every thought pattern you strengthen, every success habit you install, every neural pathway you optimize creates ripples that extend far beyond your immediate sphere. Your brain isn't just programming your own success, it's programming possibilities for generations to come. This isn't abstract philosophy. It's practical neuroscience. Research shows that our neural patterns create cascading effects through our relationships, work, and communities that continue long after we're gone. When you optimize your brain's programming, you're not just elevating your own performance, you're establishing new standards of possibility for everyone you influence. The profound impact of neural legacy is perfectly illustrated through the story of Muhammad Yunus, whose transformed understanding of poverty created a revolution in global economics. As the economics professor in Bangladesh during the 1970s, Yunus operated according to traditional academic neural programming about poverty and banking. But a devastating famine in 1974 forced him to confront the limitations of his existing mental patterns. Walking through villages near his university, Yunus met women trapped in cycles of poverty by predatory lenders. His conventional economic training insisted these women were too risky for traditional loans. But as he interviewed them, something remarkable happened. His brain began forming new neural connections, recognizing patterns that challenged everything he thought he knew about banking and human potential. Instead of seeing poor villagers as financial risks, his rewired perspective revealed them as untapped entrepreneurs. This neural shift led to a simple experiment. Yunus lent $27 of his own money to 42 women to start micro-businesses. When every woman repaid the loan and grew their enterprise, Yunus realized his brain's new programming could transform millions of lives. This neural reprogramming eventually became the Grameen Bank and the global microfinance movement, lifting over 100 million people out of poverty. More importantly, Yunus's transformed understanding of human potential created new neural possibilities in the banking industry, economics education, and poverty alleviation that continue expanding decades later. The application of neural legacy requires understanding how your optimized brain patterns can create lasting positive impact. This isn't about grand gestures. It's about consistent neural influence through three key channels: direct teaching, behavioral modeling, and system transformation. Direct teaching involves explicitly sharing your enhanced neural programming with others. This could mean mentoring team members in peak performance techniques, teaching family members about emotional mastery, or showing friends how to access flow states. The key is translating your neural optimization into clear, actionable guidance others can implement. Behavioral modeling leverages the brain's mirror neuron system, which automatically adopts patterns from people we respect and trust. By consistently demonstrating your enhanced neural programming through visible behaviors and results, you create templates others naturally emulate. This invisible influence often creates deeper impact than direct instruction. System transformation involves embedding your optimized neural patterns into processes, protocols, and frameworks that others can use. This could mean developing new workflows that enhance team productivity, creating decision-making frameworks that elevate group performance, or designing environments that automatically trigger success-supporting behaviors. Thomas Miller's story powerfully demonstrates how these principles create exponential impact. As a community college physics professor, Thomas struggled watching brilliant students underperform due to limiting mental patterns about their capabilities. Though he excelled at teaching physics concepts, he realized his greater legacy opportunity lay in sharing his neural optimization techniques. Thomas began integrating simple brain enhancement strategies into his lessons, teaching students about focus states before exams, sharing memory techniques for complex formulas, and demonstrating stress mastery during challenging problems. He created study guides that doubled as neural programming protocols, helping students install success-supporting mental patterns while learning physics. The results were remarkable. Not only did his students' physics performance improve dramatically, but they began applying these neural optimization techniques in other classes and areas of life. Many reported teaching the methods to family members or using them in their jobs. Several started tutoring younger students, passing on both physics knowledge and enhanced neural programming. Most revealing was when Thomas started hearing from former students years later. One had become a high school teacher and was using his neural optimization techniques with hundreds of students each year. Another had brought the methods into her corporate training role, elevating team performance across her organization. A third had taught the techniques to his children, creating a multi-generational impact. What Thomas discovered was that by sharing his enhanced neural programming, he wasn't just helping individual students. He was creating ripples of transformation that would continue expanding long after they left his classroom. His legacy wasn't limited to physics education, but extended to every life improved by the neural optimization patterns he helped install. The key insight from Thomas's story is that legacy-scale impact doesn't require a global platform or revolutionary innovation. It simply requires consistently sharing your enhanced neural programming in ways that others can adopt and pass on. Every optimized thought pattern you transfer, every success habit you help install, every limiting belief you help someone overcome, creates possibilities that extend far beyond your direct influence. This is the ultimate purpose of your neural revolution. Not just optimizing your own brain for success, but creating lasting positive impact by sharing your enhanced programming with others. The neural patterns you strengthen today will still be influencing lives generations from now through the ripples of transformation you set in motion. Your challenge for the next week is to identify 3 specific ways to share your enhanced neural programming with others. Select one success-supporting mental pattern you've mastered and teach it to someone who could benefit, whether a colleague, friend, or family member. Choose one area where you model optimized neural programming through visible behaviors and look for opportunities to make your process more explicit so others can learn from it. Identify one system or process you interact with regularly and explore how you could embed your enhanced neural patterns to elevate everyone who engages with it. Document the impact of each sharing opportunity, noting not just immediate effects, but potential long-term ripples. This simple exercise begins programming your brain for legacy-scale influence while creating immediate positive impact in your sphere of influence. Remember, your neural revolution isn't just about personal transformation. It's about expanding what's possible for everyone your life touches. 100 years from now, the enhanced neural patterns you share today will still be creating ripples of possibility through lives you'll never meet. The only question is, what kind of legacy will your neural programming create? Conclusion. Look around you. The room you're sitting in, the thoughts flowing through your mind. Everything has changed since you began this neural revolution. Your brain is operating on fundamentally different programming than when you first opened this audiobook. This isn't just personal development. It's neural evolution in action. Moving forward, you'll face challenges in maintaining and strengthening these new neural patterns. Old programming may try to reassert itself during stress or fatigue. External pressures may test your new capabilities. Self-doubt may temporarily cloud your enhanced perspective. These moments aren't setbacks. They're opportunities to reinforce your success programming. Each challenge you face strengthens neural patterns through active engagement. Every obstacle you overcome deepens the programming you've installed. Your brain grows stronger through strategic stress, just as muscles develop through progressive resistance. The courage you've shown in embracing this neural revolution deserves recognition. Questioning established patterns, challenging limiting beliefs, and installing new programming requires tremendous commitment. You've done more than listen to an audiobook. You've literally rewired your brain for extraordinary achievement. You now possess the most powerful success tool ever created. a brain that's been consciously programmed for excellence. This enhanced neural operating system gives you unprecedented ability to create meaningful change in your life and the world. The only question remaining is, how will you use this gift? What possibilities will you create with your upgraded neural capabilities? What problems will you solve with your enhanced programming? What positive impact will you generate with your transformed understanding? Let this be your legacy, a neural revolution that transforms not just your own life, but creates lasting positive impact for generations to come. Your brain has been reprogrammed for extraordinary achievement. Now go create extraordinary results. Thank you for listening and for investing in yourself. I believe in you. Your potential is endless. Now go out there and create the life you deserve.